Chapter 1080. Marquis Chen didn't know that Xiao Wanru's simple painting had ruined his previous satisfactory painting. After returning to the mansion, he went to the study and wanted to appreciate this satisfactory painting again, but was stopped by Marquis's wife's servant, who asked him to go to the backyard first. Marquis Chen didn't know what had happened and followed the old maid in. When he entered the door, his eyes immediately fell on the table. The precious painting he had just obtained was placed in the box on the table. For a moment, he didn't understand what had happened. After entering the door, he stomped to the table with his hands clasped behind his back, looked at the painting and asked in confusion, "What's wrong? Didn't you say that you didn't want to see the painting I bought?" "Marquis, is this a birthday gift for Empress Dowager?" Marquis Chen's wife asked. Marquis Chen turned around and sat down beside her. He nodded and said with a smile, "This painting is good, isn't it? It fits the scene and has a wonderful idea. If I give it to Empress Dowager, it will definitely make her proud, and His Majesty will be grateful for Empress Dowager's kindness." The more Marquis Chen thought about it, the more satisfied he felt. He was extremely satisfied. "Marquis, you'd better not give it to Empress Dowager in public. This painting is not the only birthday gift." Marquis Chen's wife shook her hand and said bluntly, "Just now, an great elder princess and Princess Chen came over, and Princess Chen also took out a painting. It is very similar to your painting, and it is more exquisite than yours. The most important thing is that the painting was made by Princess Chen herself, and it is also designed with maple leaves." "What? How is this possible?" Marquis Chen raised his head in shock and was stunned. Recently, he had been looking for a suitable painting to give to Empress Dowager. This painting of maple leaves was the most wonderful idea he could find. Before he found it, he had never even thought that it could be painted in this way. Such a good idea was actually made with someone else, and this person was Princess Chen. What's more, Princess Chen made it herself. Empress Dowager would like this idea more than him. Marquis Chen's wife rubbed her forehead and said helplessly, "Marquis, it's true. Not only did I see it, but my daughter-in-law also saw it. There was nothing bad about this husband of hers. It was just that he was too gentle, too soft, and didn't have much ability. However, none of this was important. As long as Marquis Chen was doing well and didn't cause any trouble, Marquis Chen's wife didn't think it was a big deal. Of course, it was best not to do anything shameful. Marquis Chen Manor was the Empress Dowager's maiden home. If they lost face, it was the Empress Dowager who lost face. "Master Marquis, this painting conflicts with Princess Chen's, and it's not as good as Princess Chen's. You'd better not give it to her, lest you lose face. Moreover, you're an elder. How can you clash with a junior? You won't give way." She knew that Princess Chen had also given a maple leaf painting, and it was better than the one in her residence. In fact, even if it was better than the one in her residence, Marchioness Chen felt that she had to give in. An elder should give in to a junior, not to mention that this was Princess Chen. Even if someone knew about the matter, they would only say that the Marquis was magnanimous and decent. Princess Chen was a newlywed and wanted to please the Empress Dowager. It was her first time giving a birthday gift, so she had to do her best. Marquis Chen's mansion was the Empress Dowager's maiden home. The Empress Dowager doted on Prince Chen, so Marquis Chen's mansion should also help him a little. No matter from which aspect, Marquis Chen's mansion had to give way to Princess Chen. Taking a step back, if she didn't know that Princess Chen had also prepared a maple leaf painting and accidentally bumped into it, there was nothing to say. Now that she knew, she pretended not to know. Marchioness Chen felt that it was really inappropriate. Is she really as prepared as I am? Marquis Chen's heart ached as he looked at his own painting. He really wasn't convinced. It wasn't easy for him to obtain such a painting, so he really didn't want to give it back. Of course it's about the same, and it's even better. Marquis's painting can't compare to Princess Chen's, and this painting wasn't drawn by Marquis Chen himself, so it lacks some of the sincerity. Marchioness Chen's wife mercilessly attacked him, making his words sound worthless. Marquis Chen felt very wronged. He really felt that it was very good and really wanted to give the painting to his sister. But since Marquis Chen's wife said so, he couldn't ignore it. He lowered his head dejectedly. Since Princess Chen is like this, then Then forget it. I won't give it to the Empress Dowager. Actually, the Empress Dowager would definitely like it very much. The more Marquis Chen thought about it, the more upset he became. He felt that his sincerity had been wasted and was really unwilling. He looked blankly at the painting on the table and felt his heart wrench. He was very unwilling. Marquis Chen's wife rubbed her brows helplessly when she saw his gloomy expression, as if he had no interest in life. If Marquis must give it, there is a way. What way? Marquis Chen became spirited. He sat up straight and looked at his wife with a serious expression. His wife always had her own ideas, but he didn't have any big ideas himself. Sometimes he had to ask his wife for ideas. If Marquis must give it and you feel that the Empress Dowager will like it, then give it in private. Marquis Chen's wife said helplessly. Marquis Chen's stubborn personality was becoming more and more like a child. If she didn't appease him today, he would be depressed for the next few days. He wouldn't have much energy. It wasn't a good thing for an old person to be in bad spirits all the time. Can I? Marquis Chen's eyes lit up as he asked excitedly. He didn't have to give it in front of the emperor and the officials, but he felt that the Empress Dowager would definitely like it. If he didn't give it to the Empress Dowager, he wouldn't feel benevolent. Yes, you can, but you have to make it clear that Princess Chen's painting is better. You shouldn't give it to her, but you feel that the Empress Dowager will like it, so you specially gave it to her, Marquis Chen said. Okay, I know. I'll pack up and go to the palace to see the Empress Dowager in a while. Marquis Chen nodded repeatedly. As long as he was asked to give it to her, he would be happy to do it in any way. He simply wanted the Empress Dowager to see his sincerity and like it. Zhuozhuan knows about this painting? When Great Elder Princess asked. She was also surprised at the moment, but after thinking about it carefully, how could she not be confused? It was Xiao Wanru who was going to Marquis Chen's mansion, and it was also Xiao Wanru who took out a similar painting. Grandma, I did hear that Marquis Chen got a painting which is actually similar to mine, so I specially asked you to help me ask about it. I originally thought that if this painting was not as good as the one in Marquis Chen's mansion, I would put it away and not send it to the Empress Dowager. Or if Marchioness Chen said there was something wrong with it, I wouldn't send it to her. Xiao Wanru lowered her head in embarrassment and said with a little shame in her eyes, I didn't know the details before, so I didn't explain it to you. I hope you can forgive me. Ru and Great Elder Princess couldn't bear to see her granddaughter like this. She waved her hand indifferently and said, Since you have married into the royal family, you can tell me some things that you can tell me. You don't have to tell me some things about Prince Chen. There are many rules in the royal family. Since you married Prince Chen, you are a member of Prince Chen's mansion. You should always remember this. Speaking of this, and Great Elder Princess stopped and then said slowly, No matter what you do, I will definitely stand on your side, but you don't have to tell me everything. Xiao Wanru's nose turned sour and she almost couldn't control the tears in her eyes. In the last life, she had missed out on her grandmother. In this life, her grandmother had given her all the love. She would protect her grandmother and all the people who loved her. Grandma, she bit her lip and suppressed the sadness in her heart. She raised her head again. Although there were still tears in her eyes, she showed a smile on her face and said, Grandma, don't worry. Zhuozhuan knows how to protect herself. Not only to protect herself, but also to protect Grandma and how. This child, and Great Elder Princess, who had always been strong, also had tears in her eyes and said, You child, what are you talking about? It should be Grandma who protects you too. Your irresponsible mother made things like this and left you two young children to die. Thinking of her daughter who had passed away, and Great Elder Princess couldn't hold back anymore and tears fell down. She had been angry with her daughter before, but now she only felt sorry for her daughter. She had to take care of her parents and children. Why didn't she know how to cherish herself? How could she die like this? Grandma, don't be sad. You have me and Hao now. We will definitely live a good life in the future. Xiao Wanru comforted Ru and Great Elder Princess. She stretched out her hand to pull the sleeves of the Great Elder Princess and gently shook it. Her innocent appearance made the Great Elder Princess feel a little less pain. Although her daughter was gone, the children she left behind were. Even if it was for the sake of this pair of lovely children, the great elder princess could not fall. She had to build a strong backing for them. Even though her granddaughter had become Prince Chen's wife now and didn't need her backing, and great elder princess still felt that she had to hold on. You mentioned before. How is the investigation of Xiao Jing going? Thinking of her daughter, she suddenly remembered what Xiao Wanru had mentioned before and said with a cold face, "If Xiao Jing really did it, I will never let him go." Grandma, this matter still needs to be investigated. Without specific evidence, there is no way to make it clear. Don't worry, Xiao Wanru said. She hoped that these things were done by herself. Her grandma was old and not good at pretending. After the dust settled, she should tell her grandma the truth. She couldn't disturb her grandma, let alone make her angry and worried. She mentioned it to her grandma before because she had to ask her grandma about it. She would avenge her father and mother with her own hands. Her father must have died because of Xiao Jing, and Xiao Jing couldn't escape from her mother's death either. Madame of Marquis Xing, Jiang, must also know about it. However, it had been a long time, and it was not easy to find evidence. She would take her time and force her enemy into the abyss step by step. Chapter 1081. What kind of calligraphy and painting do you want? As expected, and great elder princess was attracted and asked in surprise, "The painting you sent to the Empress Dowager is good. Do you need something else?" She was afraid that Xiao Wanru didn't know how to give gifts, so she patted her hand kindly and said, "You don't have to give too many gifts. Just choose the best one. The Empress Dowager has seen all kinds of good things. In fact, the most important thing is the intention. Your maple leaf painting has the intention and the idea. It's already excellent. If you give more, it will make people feel that it's superfluous." "Grandma, I want to see more calligraphy and paintings. Maybe I can make better ones," Xiao Wanru said. "Okay, I have some here. You can take them if you like them." And great elder princess nodded and said. She thought that Xiao Wanru meant to collect the best of various styles to make her previous paintings more perfect. "Grandma, I naturally want to have a look at your calligraphy and paintings. You have to help me pay attention to them. If you see suitable ones, help me buy them. In a while, you can ask someone to send a message that you are looking for some good calligraphy and paintings." Xiao Wanru explained. She wanted to spread the news first. "Okay, I got it." And great elder princess nodded and agreed. "Sister." The curtain at the door was lifted, and Xiao Yuanhao came in. He looked like a little boy and was no longer the little playboy he used to be. When he entered the door and saw Xiao Wanru, his eyes lit up. He took 2 steps forward and bowed respectfully to Xiao Wanru and great elder princess. "Sister and grandma, why didn't you take me out?" Xiao Wanru smiled. The little boy already had a beautiful face. His appearance was a little different from Xiao Wanru's. He was more handsome than Xiao Wanru. Although he still looked like a child, it could be seen that he would definitely be an elegant and beautiful young man in the future. Compared with 3 years ago, he not only grew taller, but also became much more sensible. He was no longer the little boy who was forced to study and cried with tears and snot. "You are studying. How can grandma and I disturb you?" Xiao Wanru said. Come here and sit with grandma." And great elder princess said with a smile. Looking at her granddaughter and grandson, she liked them very much. Xiao Yanhao sat down beside and great elder princess and said, "Sister, I study hard. Even if I go out with my maternal grandmother and sister, I won't miss my studies. Before my brother-in-law left, he told me that there are no other men in the family. If my maternal grandmother and sister have something to do, he asked me to accompany them. Even if I do nothing, it's good to boost your courage." Xiao Yuanhao stuck out his chest and felt that his brother-in-law, Prince Chen, was right. For his brother-in-law, Xiao Yuanhao had changed from fear to admiration. This process was actually a bitter one. Of course, these were not important. Xiao Yuanhao felt that what he had done in the past was his dark history, which was better not to be mentioned. Prince Chen said that even if he was sick and weak, he had to accompany his sister. Although he was young, he was also a man, so he couldn't let his sister be bullied. Seeing him acting like an adult, Xiao Wanru and great elder princess looked at each other and couldn't help laughing. Okay, study hard in the future. I'll wait for you to become successful, Xiao Wanru said with a smile. Sister, rest assured. I will definitely support you in the future. If my brother-in-law dares to bully you, I will definitely not spare him. Xiao Yunhao clenched his fists. Although he felt guilty, he still gritted his teeth to show that he could bear it. In fact, he was really afraid of this black-bellied brother-in-law. However, he couldn't be less manly in front of his sister. Even if he was afraid, he had to say it. Xiao Wanru stood up, walked to Xiao Yunhao, and asked softly, How has grown up and is now the heir of Marquis Xing's mansion? I mean, if you don't have the title of heir of Marquis Xing's mansion, what will you do? I'm not afraid. I only want my sister and maternal grandmother, Xiao Yuanhao said without hesitation. When he was young and ignorant, people in the mansion always told him that everything in the mansion would belong to his elder brother and had nothing to do with him. They told him that he only needed to eat, drink, and have fun. Even his manservant beside him said so. After hearing and seeing, Xiao Yuanhao never thought that the title of heir of Marquis belonged to him. When he was in the mansion, everyone around him shook their heads when talking about his parents. They said that they not only caused old madam to lose her daughter-in-law, but also caused him to lose his parents at a young age. They said that his mother, Infanta Qinghua, was self-righteous and didn't show filial piety to old madam. Later, she instigated his father to leave the mansion, which caused such a tragedy. In short, they brought all of this upon themselves, but the mansion had done their best to treat them. Such words made Xiao Yuanhao, who started to be sensible, very uncomfortable. He even scolded the manservant beside him for this. But even so, he still said what should be said. Even if he didn't say it in front of him, he would secretly say it behind his back. But he just had to hear it. At that time, he was still young and didn't know how to deal with this kind of thing. So he told it to old Madam and Madam Jiang, who loved him the most. They coaxed him on the surface and scolded the servants who gossiped a little. After that, they still did what they should do and even became worse. What he didn't understand before, he understood now. Everything was just the malice of Marquis Xing's mansion against him. In fact, Xiao Yuanhao didn't want to be the heir of Marquis Xing's mansion at all. Sister, the title of heir of Marquis is really nothing. I don't care whether I have it or not. Xiao Yuanhao said seriously with a straight face. Looking at this pair of little children, and great elder princess's eyes turned red. She turned her head and wiped her eyes with a handkerchief. In fact, she didn't care about the title of Marquis Xing. After so many years of trouble, she just didn't want the title, which originally belonged to her daughter and son-in-law, to fall into the hands of the second branch of Marquis Xing's mansion. If it hadn't been for the second branch, her daughter and son-in-law wouldn't have been forced out of the capital city, and all the tragedies wouldn't have happened. Fortunately, her granddaughter and grandson were sensible. What made Ru and great elder princess feel most fortunate was that her granddaughter found Hao and helped her bring Hao to great elder princess's mansion so that she could raise Hao. In this way, those people in Marquis Xing's mansion wouldn't raise Hao unjustly. They were all biological children. She didn't know why some people were so biased. Shuizhua, Hao doesn't care about the title, and I don't care about it either. Just do what you want to do. And great elder princess wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes, turned her head and said with a smile. Xiao Wanru pulled Xiao Yuanhao to sit beside great elder princess and held great elder princess's hand with the other. Grandma, don't worry. Her long eyelashes fluttered twice to hide the sharp light in her eyes. She didn't really want to lose the title. She just wanted to know the thoughts of the people she cared about. Since everyone didn't care about it, she already had a plan in her mind. If someone thought that the title of Marquis Xing's mansion was what she and her grandma cared about the most, they would really be disappointed. It would be great if someone took it as a trump card. And great elder princess wants to collect calligraphy and paintings? Zhao Shiran looked at Madame Zhao in front of him in astonishment and asked in surprise. Madame Zhao lowered her head, rubbed her handkerchief, and shook her head. Your father got the news that Ru and great elder princess collects calligraphy and paintings for Princess Chen. Why does Princess Chen want to collect calligraphy and paintings? Is it for the Empress Dowager's birthday? Zhao Xiran asked in confusion. If it's for the Empress Dowager's birthday, she should have prepared it early. It's almost the day. Why did she think of collecting it now? Isn't it too hasty? Your father means to ask if it's because of? Madame Zhao stretched out her hand and made a stroke, which represented the whole Marquis Xing's mansion. Mother, it can't be. Princess Chen hasn't returned to the Marquis's mansion. How could she suddenly do this? Zhao Xiran said in a low voice. There were only 2 of them in the room. The rest of the servants had been driven out. Madame Zhao came to visit her daughter today. Xiao Huan couldn't sit still here, so he asked 2 servants to carry him to the study in the front yard. His injury had basically stabilized, and he just needed to take a good rest. His injury was serious, so he had to lie in bed for at least several months, and he couldn't ride a horse in the future. You haven't got any information from the son-in-law until now? Seeing that her daughter didn't make any progress, Madame Zhao said discontentedly. She frowned tightly and said in a reproachful tone, Mother, if I knew, how could I not tell you and father? Seeing that her mother didn't understand her, Zhao Xiran couldn't help being annoyed. Mother, since I decided to marry into the Marquis's mansion, I have decided to help father. Am I not doing good enough now? After saying that, she cried aggrievedly. Thinking of her lost child, she felt a burst of sadness. When she married into the Marquis's mansion, she did have an ulterior motive, but she also lived with Xiaohua, and wholeheartedly. Now her life was like this, which she had never thought before. In the past, she was also proud and arrogant, thinking that as long as she wanted to live a good life, there was nothing she couldn't do. Unexpectedly, something happened as soon as she married into the Marquis's mansion. After that, things happened one after another. Now, she didn't even know how to live. Marquis's mansion was ruined like this, and it was ruined so quickly. This was something that Zhao Xiran didn't expect when she married into the Marquis's mansion. Seeing her daughter crying, Madame Zhao hurriedly comforted her. It's mother's fault. Mother was too anxious. Your father didn't do his job well, and now he has no choice but to rely on you. He's afraid that if the emperor finds out about this, not only will he lose his life, but our entire household will also lose their lives. Your father has no other choice. Speaking of this, Madame Zhao cried. Xiran, you have suffered. There are so many troubles in the Marquis's mansion, and you have suffered. If I had known this, I wouldn't have let you marry into the Marquis's mansion. It would have been better if I didn't listen to your father and son's ideas. Chapter 1082. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign /say, net wonderful pop-up window free reading. Thinking of these things, Madame Zhao also felt sad. If it weren't for Master, her daughter wouldn't have to make so much effort. Her daughter had grown up in front of her. She had been smart since she was a child, and she was better than her son. Master had repeatedly said that it would be good if Xiran was a son. But now her daughter was trapped in the mud of Marquis Xing's mansion. She couldn't get out of it even if she wanted to. Seeing Madame Zhao crying, Zhao Xiran calmed down, put away his grievances, and comforted her in a low voice. Mother, don't be sad. It has come to this and we can plan slowly. If those words are in the mansion, I think it is most likely to be in my father-in-law's study, and Hua An doesn't know it. She had searched Xiao Hua An's house and the study several times, and asked Xiao Hua An about it openly and secretly. Every time she talked about this kind of thing, Xiao Hua An was very confused. As a daughter-in-law, you can't search your father-in-law's place at will. Madame Zhao wiped her tears and frowned. Although Marquis Xing's mansion had declined so fast, the rules of aristocratic families still existed. It was outrageous for a daughter-in-law to go to her father-in-law's place to rummage through things, and it would arouse suspicion. If there were any rumors, the daughter-in-law would be too ashamed to live to see others. Mother, there might not be a chance in the past, but now there is a chance. I'm in charge of this mansion. Old Madam of the inner court is not here, and Madam is also locked up. The third branch is not in charge. As long as we don't provoke them, they won't say anything. Zhao Xiran calmed down and said, It was indeed a good chance, but even if it was a good chance, it was not easy to get it. As a daughter-in-law, she should not search Xiao Jing's place. Recently, mother, I feel that there is something wrong with my father-in-law. Zhao Shiran said thoughtfully. What's wrong? Madame Zhao was shocked. She looked around and asked in a low voice. Actually, I don't know if it's really abnormal. I've sent people to keep an eye on Eunuch's courtyard. These days, Eunuch has been spending a lot more time in the courtyard. In the past, when there was no one piling up junk, there would occasionally be lights. Although the flashing time was not long, it was as if someone was looking for junk. But one can't keep looking for junk, especially when Eunuch is in the residence. Zhao Shiran said. Since she was suspecting Xiao Jing, of course people would pay special attention to her. In the past, she couldn't. Now that the people of Marquis Xing's mansion were hesitant, it was not so difficult for her to send her trusted subordinates to check it out. She was now in charge of the inner courtyard. Of the 2 layers of mother-in-law above her, one was not in the manor, and the other was locked up. Now she was in charge of the household, and all the servants were fawning over her. Mother, go back and tell father that Princess Chen collects calligraphy and paintings by accident. If father is worried, mother, don't you have a relationship with Br and great elder princess? It's okay to inquire about it occasionally, but you can't talk too much. Father will also keep an eye on things outside, and I will deal with the affairs of Marquis Xing's mansion carefully. Seeing that Madame Zhao was still in a panic, Yu Shiran summed up. Okay, we can only do this now. Be careful. Madame Zhao wiped the corners of her eyes and nodded heavily. She looked up at Zhao Shiran and felt very distressed. You are injured this time. Don't be careless and take good care of yourself. Madame Jiang is vicious. It's better to lock her up and never see anyone again. Madame Zhao wished that Madame Jiang was dead. Only when she was dead could she take revenge for her daughter. Mother, don't worry. I will deal with it. Zhao Shiran said softly. The mother and daughter talked for a while, and then Madame Zhao got up and left. She came here today to tell Zhao Shiran the news that Princess Chen collected calligraphy and paintings. Since Zhao Shiran was also not clear about it, she had to go back and tell her master about it. Seeing Madame Zhao leave, Zhao Shiran sat down with a heavy face. She didn't finish her words to Madame Zhao just now. How could she enter her father-in-law's courtyard at will? Even if she found something unusual, she had no right to go in and find it. What happened that year was complicated. Her father only found a part of it, and then based on this part, he concluded that the thing was in Marquis Xing's mansion and should be in Xiao Jing's hands. Marquis Xing's mansion had been in trouble before, but in the end, nothing serious happened. It must be that Xiao Jing took out something and sent it to someone so they got help. Of course, those descendants of the royal family didn't care about money the most. If they cared about loyalty, Duke Xing's mansion in the past would definitely be favored by those people. But now Marquis Xing's mansion had declined, so no one was willing to help. So they must have sent something that could attract those people. This thing was very likely to be the thing that her father had been looking for. Because of the loss of this thing, her father had been trembling with fear for so many years, for fear that something would go wrong. At that time, the former heir of Duke Xing entrusted him with the task and asked him to find it. Unexpectedly, he was deceived by the former heir of Duke Xing. After that, it was gone. This thing was entrusted to her father by the former emperor before his death. But later, when the emperor ascended to the throne, her father didn't dare to act rashly. It seemed that those who knew this thing at that time had all died later. Her father thought that this thing was over. She just needed to hide it carefully and wait for the future. It was unknown where the former heir of Duke Xing got the news and went to Zhao's mansion to threaten and entice her father. Her father had to tell the former heir of Duke Xing about it, and then the former heir of Duke Xing disappeared in the vast crowd. It was said that he fell out with his family and left with Infanta Qinghua. After leaving, he never came back. Minister Zhao was on tenterhooks every day. He was afraid that this thing would make trouble and that Xiao Jiang would find those things and present them to the emperor. The only way was to find these things and present them to the emperor to make up for his mistake. Xiao Jiang was dead. The news from Minister Zhao was that Xiao Jiang was probably killed by Xiao Jing. At that time, Xiao Jing was also at the border. Later, It was said that Xiao Jiang had an accident and his widow, Infanta Qinghua, went crazy when she brought her back to the capital. After giving birth to a son, she died not long after. There seemed to be no way to investigate this matter. A young child didn't know anything. Xiao Jiang and his wife who knew this were all dead. Originally, Minister Zhao kept a close eye on Xiao Jing. He thought that it was Xiao Jing. Later, Xiao Zhang's daughter, Xiao Wanru, appeared, and Minister Zhao had a new suspect. This was also the reason why Zhao Xiran married into Marquis Xing's mansion in a hurry. At first, they just kept Marquis Xing's mansion in suspense. After Xiao Wanru came down from the Yuhui nunnery and returned to Marquis Xing's mansion, Zhao's mansion agreed to marry their daughter. Xiao Wanru's identity at that time could not be seen by outsiders. However, things changed too fast, and Minister Zhao and Zhao Xiran didn't have time to deal with it. Now things had come to this point. Zhao Xiran, who had married into Marquis Xing's mansion and thought that she could easily find out the truth and find what her father needed, couldn't help but doubt her ability. First Grandma, old maid Han has something to report to you. Qiu Yu, her personal maid, reported in the corridor. Let her in. Zhao Xiran restrained her thoughts and said gently. Qiu Yu lifted the curtain and came in. She was one of Zhao Xiran's 2 dowry maids, and the other one was Qiu Lian. Both of them were Zhao Xiran's trusted maids. Now they were helping her to deal with the affairs of Marquis Xing's mansion. Behind her was an old maid in her 50s. She was very thin, and her eyes were rolling around. She looked very smart. When she entered, she did not dare to be presumptuous. She hurriedly saluted and said, "Greetings, First Grandma." "No need." Zhao Xiran waved her hand. This was the trusted maid she received in Marquis Xing's mansion. In the past, she was in charge of flowers and trees. She was in charge of the large area of flowers and trees outside Xiao Jing's courtyard, so it was convenient for her to go in and out there. "First Grandmother, I saw the lights in the room turn on again last night. There seemed to be more than one figure, but I couldn't see clearly. After that, the lights went off. I stared at that place until midnight. Then I almost fell asleep. Suddenly, I heard a loud voice. It was so loud that I was startled. When I looked over there, the lights flickered again. After that, there was no more sound." Old maid Han reported. She didn't look very energetic at this moment. Her eyes were red as if she had stayed up all night. "Well, you've worked hard. Go down and get the reward later. Continue to keep an eye on that place in the future." Zhao Xiran nodded and said, "Thank you, First Grandma." "Thank you, First Grandma. I will definitely do it." Old maid Han said gratefully. After Qiu Yu took her away and rewarded her, she returned to the room. Seeing Zhao Xiran sitting there with a gloomy face, she hurried to bow to her and said, "First Grandma." "How is the first young master?" Zhao Xiran asked. She had sent Qiu Yu to Xiaohua and study to ask if there was anything he needed. The first young master said he didn't need anything. He just read in the study and asked First Grandma not to worry about him, Qiu Yu said. She thought the first young master was a good man. At this time, he still wanted to study wholeheartedly and wanted to give the First Grandma a chance to be conferred the title of honorary princess. After his leg was injured, Xiaohua, and was depressed for a period of time. But then he cheered up and wanted to make a name for himself by studying. He said that he had wasted so many years and didn't think about making a future by studying. Now that he didn't have the title of heir of Duke Xing, he could study peacefully with his leg broken. Zhao Xiran sighed softly. Hearing Xiao Huan's words, she felt a little comforted. Xiao Huan was talented and learned, but he didn't want to make a name for himself in the Imperial examination. If he really wanted to study for the title of heir of Duke Xing, he would definitely make a name for himself. However, Xiao Huan was satisfied with the title of heir of Duke Xing, but she was not. Why did Xiao Yuanhao, who was so young and not close to Marquis Xing's mansion, get the title? Since she married into Marquis Xing's mansion, she had only seen Xiao Yuanhao a few times. He was obviously the grandson of and great elder princess, but he had nothing to do with Marquis Xing's mansion. No matter how she looked at it, the title should belong to Hua. Ask the first young master every day. If there is anything he likes, Make it and send it to him immediately. Old Maid Han also keeps an eye on him. If there is anything, ask her to report to me. Zhao Shiran ordered methodically. Things had to be done one by one. What her father had taught her was not only the means of the inner court. Compared with a woman who only knew how to fight for favor, she was more capable. If she were a man, she would behave the same way as Xiao Huan, and she would appreciate Xiao Huan more. Chapter 1083. After Xiao Wanru came back from Great Elder Princess's mansion, she immediately sent someone to invite the chief butler. After the chief butler sat down, she immediately told him what she had seen in Marquis Chengen's mansion and asked him to give her advice. While listening to Xiao Wanru's detailed description of the scene, the chief butler frowned and his face changed. When Xiao Wanru stopped, he asked anxiously, "Is it really the Empress Dowager's mother feeding medicine to her eldest son?" "It should be." The child was lying on the bed with a towel covering his forehead. His face was pale, and the medicine in the bowl was black. It didn't look like normal tea. Xiao Wanru thought for a while and said, "At that time, she deliberately saw it clearly because she wanted to come back and tell the chief butler about it. Since the chief butler was a member of the Imperial Palace, he might know something. Compared with others, the chief butler was the most likely person to know this kind of thing. Even her grandmother only heard many things and couldn't take it seriously. What kind of bowl is it?" The chief butler's face turned pale, and his lips trembled twice. He lowered his voice and asked. Xiao Wanru really couldn't remember what the bowl looked like at the moment. At that time, her attention was not on the bowl. She just looked at the shape, behavior, and all the things and movements, but she ignored the bowl. Now she remembered that the pattern on the bowl was also very clear, but she just glanced at it and didn't pay attention to it. Seeing that Xiao Wanru couldn't answer for a while, the chief butler reminded her, "Is it a bowl with a red pattern on a white background, with a pattern of plain beads?" Even after so many years, the chief butler still felt his throat tighten and his back sweat when he mentioned this. Hearing his words, Xiao Wanru thought about it carefully and actually figured out some reasons. Yes, it's white background because it's more obvious. The red pattern is very conspicuous. I saw it at first sight. Is there a bead? Yes, there is. There is a bead, which is also very dazzling. Xiao Wanru recalled bit by bit. The chief butler put his hand on the table and almost fell down. Looking at several trusted servants in the room, he waved his hand and motioned them to leave. At this time, even if they were trusted servants, they couldn't listen to this kind of thing. Seeing the chief butler's solemnity, Xiao Wanru also waved her hand. Several trusted maids all left and closed the door slightly, leaving only Xiao Wanru in the room. The chief butler and Xiao Wanru. "Chief butler, what's wrong?" After everyone left, Xiao Wanru asked in a low voice. "Princess, there are some things that I dare not say. I don't even know if they are true. It's just that the late Empress was also there, so I followed her to take a look." The chief steward paused here and hesitated. He actually didn't want to mention this kind of thing. Or even if he wanted to, he would mention it to his master, not Wang Fei. However, his master was not in the capital right now. Wang Fei was smart. In addition, it was the Empress Dowager's birthday. If something really happened and Wang Fei didn't know anything, he was afraid that she would fall into someone's trap. "Chief butler," Xiao Wanru urged in a low voice. "Princess, it's really inconvenient for me to say anything, and I can't say everything. I'm afraid that Princess will guess something wrong." The head butler raised his head with a pale face. "Don't worry, Chief Butler. I know the seriousness of the matter. It's not a small matter related to the Empress Dowager," Xiao Wanru said calmly. Of course, she knew that. She still had a lingering fear about what had happened in the last life. Even the Empress Dowager and the Empress were involved in it. How could it be a small matter? Even if she didn't know the details, she wouldn't act rashly, let alone tell others about it. Although Xiao Wanru looked nervous, her face was still calm. She didn't turn pale with fright because what she wanted to know was a secret in the palace. The chief butler let out a sigh of relief and said slowly, "I really don't know what happened at that time. I only know that the late emperor was seriously ill and his condition was getting worse. The Imperial Institute of Medicine had sent someone to inform the late Empress and the Empress Dowager. On that day, the Empress Dowager personally served the late Emperor with medicine. Before the medicine was finished, the late Emperor died. The medicine bowl rolled to my feet. Speaking of this, the chief butler couldn't go on. Even though many years had passed, he still remembered the scene clearly. No one had expected that the late Emperor would suddenly die. Many people in the hall almost subconsciously looked at the Empress Dowager. Only he lowered his head because he noticed the medicine bowl at his feet. Later, these people were convicted of offending the emperor and died a violent death one by one. The whole country mourned the death of the late emperor. No one would care about the death of a few palace servants. The chief butler knew that he was fine. It was not only because he didn't look at the Empress Dowager at that time, which angered the Empress Dowager, but also because the former empress was protecting him in the palace, so he escaped the disaster and kept his life. He would bury this past deep in his heart after the death of the late emperor. He didn't expect that there would be a day when he would dig it out. His lips trembled a few times, and it took him a long time to calm down. Your Highness, this matter has passed. But since this painting has come out, it means that someone also knows what happened that day and wants to assassinate the Empress Dowager. The chief butler didn't continue, but Xiao Wanru understood. This was a direct accusation that the Empress Dowager murdered the late emperor. Things that she didn't understand before suddenly became clear because of the chief butler's words. The three children implied the three sons of the Empress Dowager. The sick eldest son, the favored second son, and the third son, who played alone. The eldest son was drinking medicine on the bed, and the second son came over. It seemed that the mother and the second son had a deep relationship, but it could also be understood that the mother and the second son murdered the eldest son together. The two of them leaned together to show that they were very close and dealt with the late emperor together? If this was the case, how could the Empress Dowager not be shocked and angry when she saw such a painting? Did the late emperor really have an accident because of this bowl of medicine? Xiao Wanru knew that she shouldn't ask this. Even if she wanted to ask, it should be Chu Luchan. But at this time, she swallowed and tried to look calmer. Her long eyelashes hid the panic at the bottom of her eyes. The Empress Dowager was the only elder who seemed to be really kind to Chu Luchan. She was wholeheartedly for Chu Luchan's grandmother. If all this was hypocritical, how big a blow it would be to Chu Luchan. He had been alone and had abandoned himself for so many years. If he suffered such a blow again, she didn't know what would happen. Xiao Wanru was really flustered. The late emperor was seriously ill at that time, and the Imperial Institute of Medicine had already given an indication. At this time, the Empress Dowager wouldn't be so irrational. The chief butler answered with a livid face. He had hidden these words in his heart for so many years, and he was still very nervous to say them now. Xiao Wanru breathed a sigh of relief and squeezed the handkerchief in her hand hard. Feeling the dampness under her hand, she slowly felt relieved. Come on. She knew what the chief butler meant. As long as the Empress Dowager was not a fool, she would deal with the late emperor at this time and murder him. She didn't have much time left, so how could she murder the late emperor? Even if she didn't do anything, it would be a matter of a few days. Therefore, the Empress Dowager didn't murder the late emperor as implied in the painting. In other words, the Empress Dowager was sincere to Chu Luchan, and she didn't feel guilty for murdering his father. The Empress Dowager really loved Chu Luchan's imperial grandmother. Chief Butler, were there anyone else present at that time? Xiao Wanru asked again, feeling relieved. The burden in her heart was much lighter. At that time, the Empress Dowager and the late Empress were present, as well as the late Emperor's trusted subordinates. Most of these people are dead. Even if they are not dead, I don't know where they are now. The chief butler calmed down the panic in his heart, composed himself, and spoke in a coherent way. Was the Empress there? Xiao Wanru asked again. This matter should have something to do with the Empress. Otherwise, the Empress wouldn't have been implicated later. The Empress wasn't there. At that time, the Empress was just a princess and didn't come to see the late Emperor, who was ill. The Emperor wasn't there either. He wasn't in the palace at that time. It was the Empress Dowager who invited him here. After the late emperor died of illness, the Empress Dowager and the late Empress discussed it and went to invite the emperor. When the Empress Dowager and the late Empress discussed it, I and the others left. The chief butler recalled for a while and said, "It happened so suddenly that no one expected it. That is to say, no one knows what the Empress Dowager and the late Empress said?" Xiao Wanru said thoughtfully, "Those words should be the key to deciding whether to pass the throne to Chu Luqian, who had just been born in swaddling clothes, or to his younger brother, who was in the prime of his life. It was up to them to decide. No one knows. Only the Empress Dowager and the late Empress Dowager were inside at that time, but this old servant felt that it happened very quickly, as if it was decided in just a few words," the chief butler said as he calmed down and recalled. The inheritance of the throne was decided in a few words? Xiao Wanru was stunned. Shouldn't she think about it carefully? Even if the late empress didn't do it for herself, she had to fight for her son. How could she give the throne to the current emperor without any objection? This was simply too puzzling. Although a woman was soft, a mother was tough. Why didn't the late empress fight for her son? In history, there were many emperors who were carried to the throne by their mothers when they were born. Why didn't the late empress agree? Xiao Wanru always felt that there was something incomprehensible about the late empress's matter. It seemed that something was not connected, so that some things were against common sense. "Your Highness, if there is anyone who can dig out this kind of thing now, I think it is most likely to be the current empress. After all, only she has the ability to dig out this kind of old thing now. There is someone behind the painting. Someone deliberately sent the painting to Marquis Qingyan's mansion. If Marquis Qingyan's mansion presents this painting to the Empress Dowager in front of the officials, something will definitely happen." The chief butler had lived in the palace for a long time and had very sharp eyes. After thinking about it, he immediately thought of the accident in it and immediately reminded Xiao Wanru. If the painting was presented to the imperial court, something big would definitely happen. Chapter 1084. Xiao Wanru's face darkened, and her eyes were deep. She understood what the butler meant. Others might not understand the picture presented to the imperial court, but how could the Empress Dowager not understand it? She was reminded of the past, and it was even a picture presented by her own brother. The Empress Dowager would not be able to bear it for a while and would definitely faint, and then she would fall seriously ill. The emperor could also understand the painting. Even if he was not there at that time, he must have asked about it later, so he also knew about it. Seeing that the Empress Dowager couldn't bear it and fell ill, he had no place to vent his anger. Because the painting was presented by Marquis Qingyan's mansion, and it was a kind gesture from Marquis Qingyan, who was the emperor's uncle. The emperor couldn't do anything to Marquis Qingyan when the Empress Dowager was ill, so the emperor didn't do anything to Marquis Qingyan, who presented the painting. It seemed to be silent, as if nothing had happened. There should be some rumors in the imperial palace that the Empress Dowager murdered the late emperor, so the Empress Dowager's health became worse and worse. Later, she was bedridden and finally died of sadness. All of this implied that the empress was the mastermind behind it. If there were still people in the imperial palace who knew what had happened in the past, the emperor was the most suspicious one. If there were still people in the imperial palace who wanted to deal with the Empress Dowager, it was really the empress. After dealing with the Empress Dowager, the empress was the most powerful person in the imperial palace. Therefore, the emperor was furious and locked up the empress. He might even want to abolish the empress. That was why Prince Zhou rebelled later. It could be said that Prince Zhou would not benefit from the whole thing. So it should be someone else who did it, not the empress and Prince Zhou. Was it Chu Liuyue's mother, concubine De, or Prince Cheng, who was outside the imperial palace? Xiao Wanru's brain worked rapidly. At present, she was most suspicious of these two people. In the last life, Chu Liyue was finally defeated. Xiao Wanru didn't know why, and she had no memory of what happened to Prince Cheng. She reached out and rubbed between her eyebrows. In the last life, she was far away from the center of power, so she didn't know many things. Besides, there were some missing memories, so she really didn't know the specific things. "Your Highness, be careful." Seeing that she was silent, the head butler reminded her. Since the princess had also seen the painting, she would definitely be involved. Since Wang Ye was not in the Fu, he must not let anything happen to Wang Fei. This was what Wang Ye had repeatedly told him before he left. Wang Fei, when Wang Yi left, he said that if the palace became suspicious of Wang Fei, you should wear the natural warm jade that Wang Yi gave you that year. The head butler reminded. Xiao Wanru naturally remembered the natural warm jade pendant. It was this jade pendant that the Empress Dowager temporarily agreed to marry Chu Luchen. Later, she exchanged this jade pendant with another jade pendant and gave it to Chu Luchen. Chu Luchen had been wearing it all the time. Before leaving the capital city, Chu Luchen deliberately left this jade pendant to her. He said with a smile that reminded her of him when she saw it. It turned out that he had prepared it for her a long time ago. She felt warm in her heart. She bit her lip and nodded. Sure enough, someone from the palace quickly came to summon her. The Empress Dowager summoned her to the palace. Xiao Wanru dressed up a little, put on the jade pendant left by Chu Luchen, and followed the summoned servant to the Empress Dowager's palace of benevolent peace. There was no one else in the hall, and the Empress Dowager was sitting high on the chair. Xiao Wanru had sharp eyes and saw a wet spot on the ground. Although it had been cleaned up, it could still be seen that it should have been wet just now. In the far corner, there was a piece of broken porcelain that had not been cleaned up in time. It seemed that Marquis Chenjen had been here and presented the painting to the Empress Dowager. Fortunately, there was no one else here, and the Empress Dowager didn't lose face in public. She looked calm at this time. Xiao Wanru had no choice but to ask Marquis Chenjen to present the painting at this time. If she presented the painting in front of the emperor's officials at the birthday banquet, it would really be a big deal. But now, she hated the Empress Dowager because of Nanny Wei, and the Empress Dowager didn't like her at all at this time, so it was a little difficult. She subconsciously pressed the jade pendant at the corner of her skirt and calmed down. Even though it was difficult for her to get through this, Chu Luchen had already prepared something to protect himself. She took 2 steps forward and knelt down respectfully in front of the Empress Dowager. Imperial grandmother. The Empress Dowager's eyes fell on her coldly. She didn't let her get up and carefully looked at her. Finally, her eyes moved down and fell on the jade pendant hanging on her waist. Only then did her face ease a little. This jade pendant was given to Chu Luchen by her, so how could she not recognize it? This child had sent the jade pendant to Xiao Wanru again and again, which really made her unhappy. But no matter how unhappy she was, she thought that Chu Luchen had only cared about Xiao Wanru in front of her for so many years. Even though Empress Dowager was unhappy, she still suppressed her anger at this time. "Get up," the Empress Dowager said lightly. Of course, if it was proved that Xiao Wanru really had ulterior motives, she would not show mercy. But before that, she had to keep calm and not convict Xiao Wanru with one-sided words. After all, what happened at that time had nothing to do with Xiao Wanru. Even Ru, the great elder princess, couldn't know anything. Everything seemed to have nothing to do with Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru answered and stood up. "I heard that you went to Marquis Chenjen's mansion before?" The Empress Dowager asked coldly. "Yes, I went to Marquis Chenjen's mansion and saw a painting of Marquis Chenjen. It was very similar to the one prepared by me, but it was more satisfactory than yours. I felt ashamed of my inferiority, so I wanted to see other masters' techniques and make up for it." Xiao Wanru lowered her head and said softly without any hesitation. Of course, the purpose of collecting paintings outside and looking for some famous masters for reference was to make the painting she prepared more perfect. Xiao Wanru originally wanted to deal with the Empress Dowager's questions, but she didn't expect that she would inadvertently cause trouble and attract the attention of Zhao Shiran and Minister Zhao's mansion. Seeing that she answered smoothly without any panic, the Empress Dowager nodded secretly. It seemed that this matter really had nothing to do with her. "How did you know that there was such a painting in Marquis Chenjen's mansion? Why did you bring one of your paintings at that time?" The Empress Dowager asked again. She suspected Xiao Wanru because Xiao Wanru could immediately take the painting out at that time. "When I went to my maternal grandmother's residence, I brought the painting with me. Originally, I wanted to ask Marchioness Chenjen to correct it. Marchioness Chenjen has the closest relationship with Imperial grandmother, so she must know Imperial grandmother's preferences. The painting hasn't been finalized yet, so it can be slightly corrected. Xiao Wanru explained unhurriedly, as if she didn't know that the Empress Dowager was staring at her with scrutiny. With her, the matter of going to the Marquis Chingan's residence had been decided a long time ago. The invitation card had also been sent over first. Once the painting was ready, it would be acceptable. Marchioness Qing and was the Empress Dowager's sister-in-law, so it was normal for her to be closer to her sister-in-law. With this explanation, the matter that Xiao Wanru took the paintings to Marquis Chingan's mansion could be explained. There was no incongruity in the whole process. Xiao Wanru's expression was also very natural and graceful, not seeming to be guilty and nervous after being caught. "How long have you been preparing your painting?" The Empress Dowager looked a little relaxed. Although she had a problem with Xiao Wanru, it could not be the evidence that Xiao Wanru was plotting something. "Yes, I've been preparing it for a long time. When I was in the Yuhui nunnery, I prepared maple leaves." With a little shyness on her face, Xiao Wanru lowered her head and said, "I heard from Prince Qin that the Empress Dowager likes maple leaves." Beautiful maple leaves were also very beautiful when collected. Some people loved flowers, so naturally, there were also people who loved maple leaves. Of course, she had to give gifts to the Empress Dowager. "When I was in the Yuhui nunnery, something happened between me and Xiao Baolin. At that time, there were a lot of maple leaves in the maple forest, so I picked a lot of them. Later, I picked a few more times before I got these good ones." Xiao Wanru explained again. Something did happen in the maple forest of the Yuhui nunnery. Xiao Yinru plotted against her once. Since the Empress Dowager wanted her to marry Chu Luchan, she also paid attention to some things and had heard about it. At that time, Nanny Wei didn't have any malice toward Xiao Wanru, and she knew that Prince Chen seemed to care about Xiao Wanru, so she was partial to Xiao Wanru. Thinking of Xiao Baolin, the Empress Dowager frowned and was very unhappy. At that time, it seemed that Xiao Baolin had a relationship with Commandery Prince Qing. It seemed that the two of them had an ambiguous relationship in the maple forest. At the thought of the fact that Xiao Baolin was her son's woman, although she had been in the cold palace all the time, the Empress Dowager also felt sick of her. Since Xiao Wanru's words came to this point, it was indeed well-founded and she had indeed prepared it a long time ago. She didn't deliberately make such a painting after knowing something. "Sit down." She pointed to the chair on the side and motioned for Xiao Wanru to sit down. Xiao Wanru answered softly, walked to the chair and sat down. She looked natural, without relaxing after being nervous, nor did she show any abnormality. It seemed that she really didn't know anything. The Empress Dowager was secretly sure that it had nothing to do with Xiao Wanru, so it couldn't be her. Since it wasn't her, the Empress Dowager stopped asking her about the maple leaves and changed the topic. "What's the matter about the butterfly clothing shop you mentioned before? Does that female shopkeeper really want to give the shop to you? Does she want you to make money because she doesn't know how to make money herself?" If it weren't for the fact that the previous matter had cleared up all her doubts, the Empress Dowager wouldn't have asked such a small matter. Xiao Wanru really breathed a sigh of relief at this time and knew that she had escaped this time, but she didn't show it on her face. She was still as calm as water. She raised her head and reported, "Imperial grandmother, there is an inside story in this matter, and it's related to Nanny Wei. I don't know what to say." No matter how Nanny Wei slandered the Empress Dowager or how she and Wei Dehai plotted against her, it was a rare good opportunity now. Chapter 1085. Remember in 1 second, 800 $say, net what she had said before was too secretive. Even Nanny Wei didn't want her to know. What she had said before was too secretive. Even Nanny Wei didn't want Empress Dowager Queen to know. In fact, it didn't matter whether she believed it or not. When she told the chief butler about this kind of thing, she also sent Yu Jie and the others out. It was not good for them to know more about this kind of thing. The Empress Dowager should do the same. It could be seen that the Empress Dowager trusted Nanny Wei very much. Now when she talked about Nanny Wei, she should be more careful. It has something to do with Nanny Wei? How can it have something to do with Nanny Wei? The Empress Dowager asked. Looking at her appearance, She knew that she had attracted the Empress Dowager's attention. Originally, the Empress Dowager just asked this question. The maple leaf painting had nothing to do with Xiao Wanru, so she mentioned it casually. Unexpectedly, it had something to do with Nanny Wei. The Empress Dowager couldn't help paying attention to it. That heartless man actually has something to do with Nanny Wei. I just found out about it. The shopkeeper said today that someone pretended to be her and conspired with Lord Wei to deceive Nanny Wei, Xiao Wanru said. He explained the cause and effect of the matter in detail. She said that Nanny Wei saw Wei Dahai coming and took a female customer out of her shop. The female customer looked a little like her and even dressed like her, so the shop assistants noticed it. After that, Wei Dahai entered the door and led the female customer away, and a shop assistant followed him. When passing by the carriage, he heard Wei Dahai introduce the woman to the people in the carriage as the shopkeeper of Butterfly Clothing Shop. He also called the person in the carriage aunt and said that she was a servant of the Empress Dowager. The shop assistant didn't hear it clearly and didn't understand it, so he went to report it to the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper felt that something was wrong and immediately reported it to Xiao Wanru. Someone pretended to be the shopkeeper of Butterfly Clothing Shop and made Nanny Wei misunderstand? The Empress Dowager's face changed and she immediately believed it. She trusted Nanny Wei very much. If Xiao Wanru said that Nanny Wei conspired with her, the Empress Dowager would definitely not believe it. But if Wei Dahai deceived Nanny Wei, the Empress Dowager would immediately believe it. Xiao Wanru's words were too true, and the expression on her face was also very calm, without any feeling of guilt. Imperial grandmother, if you don't believe me, you can check it out. I heard from the shopkeeper that the woman is the wet nurse of Lord Wei's mistress, who is about the same age as the shopkeeper. Xiao Wanru added another blow. Let the Empress Dowager investigate it herself. Since Mammy Wei was involved in this matter, the Empress Dowager would definitely not ask her to do the next task. As long as it was not her, it would be easy to find out the truth. Besides, there was also the matter of Wei Da's overseas family. When she was in front of Nanny Wei, she hid a lot of things and didn't mention Wei Dahai's name. Now that Nanny Wei wasn't here, she didn't stand on ceremony and directly addressed him as Master Wei. Lord Wei, Nanny Wei, and so many evidences to check, so the Empress Dowager immediately believed it. As soon as he believed it, his face changed drastically. She remembered the contract she had seen before. If it was true, the contract was fake. How could Xiao Wanru lose the contract? Did it mean that Nanny Wei was disloyal to her and deliberately put this matter in front of her to make up her misunderstanding? When she came back from outside the palace that day, the matter that Nanny Wei helped the Empress Dowager choose the women from aristocratic families was right in front of her. In the past, when she encountered this kind of thing, Nanny Wei would persuade her to let Chen choose by himself. Originally, it was he who liked them, so she didn't have to do it again, lest Chen felt uncomfortable. That day, Nanny Wei not only didn't persuade her, but also suggested that she should choose a few noble ladies to marry into Prince Chen's mansion, saying that it could guarantee Prince Chen's future wealth. This idea was the same as her idea at the beginning, but it didn't fit the current situation. Although the Empress Dowager disliked Xiao Wanru because of the matter of Butterfly Clothing Shop, she didn't really want Xiao Wanzhong to step down. If the noble ladies married into the mansion, the whole Prince Chen's mansion would be in a mess. The Empress Dowager didn't think so at that time. She even nodded after hearing Nanny Wei's words. Now that she calmed down, she immediately found the problem. Could it be that Nanny Wei was really disloyal to her? Impossible. This was absolutely impossible. The master and the servant had been together for so long. How could they have disloyalty at this time? Nanny Wei must have been deceived by Wei Dahai. Thinking of this, she suppressed the discomfort in her heart and said, "Go back first. I'll talk about it after I check it out." "Yes, thank you, Imperial grandmother." Xiao Wanru stood up and bowed respectfully to the Empress Dowager. She turned around and was about to leave, but was suddenly stopped by the Empress Dowager. "I seem to have heard of the name Wei Dahai. Could it be that there is something else about him?" "I don't know." Xiao Wanru shook her head, with her bright watery eyes full of doubt. Did she really not know? The Empress Dowager looked at her and waved her hand, signaling her to leave. Xiao Wanru retreated to the door as she was told. Seeing Nanny Wei standing at the door, she nodded to her with a smile and was about to leave. "Greetings, Princess Qin." Nanny Wei took the initiative to speak. Xiao Wanru stopped and asked, "Nanny Wei, what's the matter?" Nanny Wei looked Xiao Wanru up and down and didn't find anything wrong with her. She also had doubts in her heart. Even Marquis Qinzhen was smashed by the Empress Dowager. Why was nothing wrong with Princess Qin? I want to ask if the Empress Dowager is angry? Imperial grandmother asked me some questions. How could she be angry? Xiao Wanru looked at Nanny Wei calmly and said. Nanny Wei became more and more confused. When it happened, she happened to be outside. She heard that the Empress Dowager took action and Marquis Qinzhen was smashed by a teacup and went back in embarrassment. She wanted to go in to comfort the Empress Dowager, but she was told by the Empress Dowager that no one was allowed to go in and let her be quiet. After that, Xiao Wanru came. Now she seemed to be fine, which really surprised Nanny Wei. Marquis Qinzhen was the biological brother of the Empress Dowager. Although he was not capable, the Empress Dowager had always been very good to her brother. Why was Marquis Qinzhen in trouble while Princess Qin was fine? Before, the Empress Dowager obviously had a bad impression of Prince Qin and even wanted to give Prince Qin's mansion concubine and concubine. Nanny Wei had a bad feeling in her heart, so she stopped Xiao Wanru. I made a mistake. Princess Qin, please. Seeing that she couldn't get anything out of her, Nanny Wei retreated to the side, stretched out her hand, and said respectfully. After coming back, Nanny Wei also reflected on her behavior for what she had done in Prince Chen's mansion before. At that time, she felt that she was too impatient. How could she arouse the vigilance of Princess Chen? She should have done what she should have done. At present, Nanny Wei had returned to normal in front of others. Although she was the Empress Dowager's personal maid, she had always been respectful to the people of the royal family in front of others. Xiao Wanru smiled slightly. With a smile, he turned around and left. Nanny Wei stood behind her and watched her go down the high steps. She frowned tightly and felt uneasy. In the past, the Empress Dowager would tell her immediately if anything happened. Why did she not even allow her to go in now? What happened? The Empress Dowager didn't tell Nanny Wei about it. At present, what she cared about most was the maple leaf. She asked someone to invite the Emperor over, and the mother and son also asked their attendants to leave. The Empress Dowager put the painting brought by Marquis Qinzhen on the table, looked at the Emperor and said, "Your Majesty, look at this painting." The Emperor didn't know what had happened. Looking at his mother's serious look, he took the painting in confusion and unfolded it. His face immediately changed. He slapped the table heavily and said sternly, "Where did this come from?" The Empress Dowager sighed and said with a wry smile, "It was Marquis Qinzhen." The Emperor choked for a moment. If it was someone else, he would definitely think that the person was disloyal to the Empress Dowager and himself. But if it was Marquis Qinzhen, the Emperor could guarantee that this good and useless uncle would not do such a thing. The Empress Dowager was Marquis Qinzhen's sister. If his sister was not good, how could he be good? The Emperor took a deep breath and said with a gloomy face, "Who plotted against Marquis Qinzhen again?" This uncle was really useless. He was cheated from time to time. Even if the Emperor knew about some things about money, he would let him go. Now he was more and more useless. He even dared to send this kind of painting to the Empress Dowager. Originally, he planned to present it to me in front of the officials. The Empress Dowager breathed a sigh of relief. At least the current situation was good. He didn't embarrass himself in front of the officials and the Emperor. Marquis Qinzhen is getting more and more mature. He even dared to do this kind of thing. Why didn't he do it later? The Emperor said angrily. He had decided in his heart that it was better for Marquis Qinzhen not to do anything. He also didn't want to do anything in the Ministry of Internal Affairs. He was so old, and the older he got, the more muddle-headed he would be. It was better for him to stay at home and not cause any new trouble. It was Princess Qin. Coincidentally, Princess Qin wanted to ask me what I like. She brought a painting of maple leaf she made to Marquis Qinzhen's mansion. Marquis Chingan's wife felt that the paintings in her mansion were not as good as Princess Chen's, so she asked Marquis Chingan to present the painting to me first. She said that it was a gift from Marquis Chingan. The Empress Dowager was angry, but there was nothing she could do. Her eldest brother did have good intentions, but he didn't have any brains. He didn't carefully appreciate the painting and dared to decide to present it in front of the officials. "Mother, don't worry. I will investigate the people around Marquis Chingan. I will definitely pull out the person behind the scenes. I will not let him go easily." The emperor pushed the painting. He already had a plan in his heart. This matter was related to the palace. The Empress Dowager, concubine Da, and several other high-ranking concubines might have something to do with it. Of course, it was most likely to be the Empress, followed by concubine Da. Both of them had adult princes. "Don't beat the grass and alert the snake." The Empress Dowager nodded and warned. "Mother, don't worry. I will be careful." The emperor nodded. He thought for a while and said, "Mother, you'd better take a look at Princess Chen's painting first, in case something happens again." With Marquis Chingan as an example, the emperor was really afraid that Princess Chen was not sensible, so he also sent a painting of this type. Chapter 1086. Nanny Wei had been walking around outside the palace gate for many times. She felt uneasy. She pretended to look at the palace gate and the sky. She was in a panic. What did Princess Chen say to the Empress Dowager? Why did even the emperor come? What happened that she didn't know? What was the current situation? The Empress Dowager always asked her to serve the Empress Dowager. What was going on now? Was it about Wei Dahai? Thinking of this, Nanny Wei became more and more flustered and felt guilty. She certainly knew that the contract was fake. It was her nephew who conspired with her. It was her nephew who asked someone to send the contract to the Imperial Palace and throw it in that place, so that she could accompany the Empress Dowager to see it. If the Empress Dowager found out about this, she would definitely be angry. Nanny Wei's face turned blue. She took a deep breath and told herself not to panic. Maybe it was not what she guessed. Even if the Empress Dowager was angry about this kind of thing, she would not go to the emperor, let alone the emperor. She repeatedly told herself not to scare herself. It couldn't be that thing. It couldn't be that thing. The palace gate was heavily opened. The emperor in a bright yellow brocade robe appeared outside the palace gate. He looked at the people at the palace gate with his hands behind his back. Finally, his eyes fell on Nanny Wei. "Nanny Wei, my mother is inside. You go to serve her." After saying that, he led the palace attendants at the door and strode out. Nanny Wei respectfully agreed. After the emperor left, she straightened up, calmed down her flustered mind, and walked into the hall. In the hall, the Empress Dowager was still sitting with a sullen face. Hearing the voice, she looked up at Nanny Wei without a trace of smile on her face. Nanny Wei couldn't help trembling in her heart. "Empress! Empress Dowager! Go to ask concubine to come here." The Empress Dowager said coldly. "Empress Dowager, what happened? Concubine has always been filial to you." Nanny Wei said carefully. She had been with the Empress Dowager for many years. She knew that although concubine was not the empress, she was liked by the Empress Dowager. "Did I say that concubine is not filial?" The Empress Dowager looked at Nanny Wei coldly and said with a distant look, "You have followed me into the palace for so many years and know a lot of ups and downs in the palace. You should know that there is a kind of people who can't live long in the palace, right?" Who is it?" Nanny Wei's gums were knotted. "A man who betrays his master and talks too much," Empress Dowager said coldly. Nanny Wei's back was covered with cold sweat. She lowered her head in panic and gritted her teeth. After calming herself down, she replied, "I understand. I'll go and invite concubine over now." No matter what, concubine's matter had nothing to do with him. Empress Dowager waved her hand and said, "You can leave now. In the future, say what you should say and don't say what you shouldn't say." She was not in the mood to deal with Nanny Wei's matter. Compared to Marquis Chingan's matter, Nanny Wei's matter was just a small matter. After discussing with the emperor, She felt that Concubine Da and the Empress were the most likely suspects. They couldn't be interrogated together, otherwise they might be discovered. Empress Dowager and the Emperor would interrogate one by one to see who was most likely to be the person behind this matter. Concubine Da came quickly. After coming in, she bowed respectfully to the Empress Dowager and then asked about the Empress Dowager's health. She was very respected in front of the Empress Dowager and was the head of the 4 concubines. The reason why she gave birth to the Emperor's eldest son was not without reason. After talking with Concubine Da for a while, the Empress Dowager asked Concubine Da to go back and sat alone in the main hall to ponder. She didn't want to think about what happened in the past. How could she not feel sad when she saw her son die in front of her? In fact, the Empress Dowager always had a thought in her heart. She thought that her eldest son died of a normal illness. Otherwise, why did he suddenly die in the middle of taking medicine? The imperial physician had always said that it was not good and that there was no hope, but he didn't say that he died in a few days. He died suddenly and didn't even say a word. Was it really that his body couldn't bear it? Or was there another accident? But at that time, the Empress Dowager also secretly sent people to investigate, but nothing was found. Now it was turned out again and vaguely implicated herself. Who did it? This person was very familiar with the palace. The news from the palace spread silently, and many people who knew the news were secretly shocked. First, Marquis Chen was scolded and smashed by the Empress Dowager. Then the Emperor and Empress Dowager summoned the Empress and Concubine Da respectively. It was said that the Emperor's scolding could be heard in the Emperor's Imperial study. When Concubine Da came out of the Empress Dowager's palace, she was also worried and almost fell when she walked. How could it be possible that it was because of a painting of Marquis Chen? How much power did a painting have to be able to cause such a big commotion? Although Marquis Chen was useless, the Empress Dowager had always respected this elder brother of hers. Even if she was unhappy, she would not throw a teacup at Marquis Chen. Some people who saw it said that when Marquis Chen left the palace, the blood on his forehead had not been wiped clean and he looked extremely wretched. This must be a big thing caused by Marquis Chen. With Marquis Chen's character, he must have been deceived by someone. He went to the Empress Dowager to speak to her and annoyed her, which caused this disaster. After that, Marquis Chen was removed from his position in the Ministry of Internal Affairs. It could be seen that he really annoyed the Empress Dowager and the Emperor. Then there was the matter of the Empress and Concubine Da. Many people secretly guessed that this kind of thing and this kind of action had something to do with the selection of an heir. Before the matter of the Crown Prince was discussed in the court, many officials thought that it was not good for the country if there was no heir. They asked the Emperor to make a decision as soon as possible so that the officials would not panic. Thinking of this, it made some sense. There were so many in the palace. Why didn't they ask others but only the Empress and Concubine Da to investigate? It must be because of Prince Yu and Prince Zhou. As for Prince Exen, he was still young and was not valued by the Empress Dowager and the Emperor. Recently, it was said that he was not feeling well and hadn't appeared in public for a long time. Even if Concubine Ming in the palace had some ideas, so what? Compared with Prince Yu and Prince Zhou, Prince Exen was really not competitive. Were they going to determine the position of the Eastern Palace? Everyone was anxious and uneasy about who it was. They always felt that the water was very deep. Everyone had to deal with it carefully. They were all waiting for the final news from the palace. In the end, which prince did the Emperor and the Empress Dowager favor to determine the position of the Eastern Palace and become the future Crown Prince? This was a big matter that concerned the next few decades. The change of the situation in the court could also lead to a big disaster. In the Empress's Fengyi Palace, the Empress slammed her hand on the table and gritted her teeth angrily. "Your Highness, don't be angry." Her trusted nanny beside her persuaded in a low voice. "How can I not be angry? How would I know what happened in the past? I used some things to deliberately stir up trouble in the palace. How would I know what happened in the past? I was not there at that time." The Empress was very angry. For the Empress, she was inexplicably reprimanded by the Emperor and even punished to kneel. For the Empress, she lost her face. In the future, How could she be the mother of the world and tidy up the harem? She was sitting peacefully in the Fengyi palace, but caused such a big disaster. She was angry and annoyed. She felt that a breath was stuck in her heart. She couldn't swallow it or spit it out. She had been the mother of the world for so long and had only suffered losses in the hands of one person. But she had never been as humiliated as she was today. The most important thing was that she still didn't know what had happened. How could she be reprimanded? Your Highness, this matter was not done by you, then it may be concubine Da. His Highness Prince Yu has always been resourceful. Concubine Da also has a plan. Now you and Concubine Da have been called for questioning, but only you are reprimanded. It can be seen that Concubine Da has long been prepared. The Empress's personal nanny suggested. The Empress listened and nodded repeatedly. She was plotted against because she didn't know anything. Since the Emperor and the Empress Dowager had called her and Concubine Da over, it could be seen that Concubine Da was also a suspect. As for herself, since it was not her, it must be Concubine Da. This bitch. The Empress couldn't wait to go to Concubine Da's palace now and give her a few hard slaps to let her see her identity clearly. Your Highness, you can't be angry at this time. You have to think about it and ask carefully. You can't go to Concubine Da on impulse. The Empress's personal nanny knew the Empress's temper. Seeing her gnashing her teeth, she knew that something bad was going to happen, so she hurriedly persuaded. Your Highness, you are also related to Prince Zhou. You can't let Prince Zhou be implicated by you. Seeing the Empress was so angry that she was breathing heavily, the Empress was afraid that she would talk about Prince Zhou again on impulse. Hearing this, the Empress's face calmed down a little. It was indeed not the time to act rashly. She had been reprimanded by the Emperor before. She couldn't annoy the Emperor anymore. She was the Empress of the royal palace and had a legitimate son. Concubine Da, the bitch, could never climb over her head. I can bear it. The Empress gritted her teeth and said, Your Highness, I have inquired about it before. After the accident of Marquis Chen, the first person the Empress Dowager saw was Princess Chen. After that, she sent Princess Chen away as if nothing happened. Then she invited the Emperor. The Emperor left the Empress Dowager's palace of benevolent peace and went back to the Imperial study to summon you. The Empress Dowager had just gone outside to inquire about it. It was not a secret. In just a short time, she had secretly inquired about a lot of people in the palace. There had never been a lack of people in the palace who wanted to inquire about this kind of news. Summon Princess Chen tomorrow. The Empress gritted her teeth and said helplessly. It was already late at this time. It was not appropriate to let Xiao Wanru enter the palace at this time. Otherwise, she would have called Princess Chen in right now to ask about it. Your Highness, such a thing happened today. You have to find a good reason to summon her in tomorrow, right? The Empress's personal nanny suggested. There is a reason. There is a legitimate reason. She has no reason to refuse. The Empress said with hatred. At this time, she even hated Xiao Wanru. She had long disliked the Xiao sisters, not to mention now. Chapter 1087. The Empress asked me to enter the Imperial Palace? Xiao Wanru had just had breakfast when an acquaintance came. It was Nanny Shi. Yes, the Empress said that she hadn't seen Princess Chen for a long time. Hearing that Princess Chen was ill, the Empress was worried. So she specially asked me to invite Princess Chen and discuss something about Xiao Baolin with her. Nanny, she said with a smile. Her attitude was totally different from that of when she was in Marquis Xing's mansion. Her smile was friendly and kind. Something about Xiao Yanru? Xiao Wanru frowned secretly. She didn't want to meddle in Xiao Yanru's affairs at all. Xiao Yanru was always restless, and no one knew what she would do next. I've never meddled in Xiao Baolin's affairs. Why didn't the Empress ask second uncle to go there? Xiao Wanru asked. The last sentence of Nanny Shi's words was the key, but she didn't want to get involved in Xiao Yanru's affairs, or at the moment. Without Chu Luchen by her side, she was not powerful enough to deal with Xiao Yanru in the Imperial Palace. The water around Xiao Yanru was very deep. I did want to invite the elders of Marquis Xing's mansion, But there are no elders in the inner courtyard of Marquis Xing's mansion now. The only one who can be invited is Princess Jin. Princess Jin, please go ahead. The Empress is still waiting for you. Nanny, she said with a smile. Her words sounded reasonable, but her meaning was very tough. The Empress didn't ask her to come in, but only summoned her. In fact, she had to go. She had a good reason. Xiao Wanru could only nod and ask Nanny Shi to go back first. She would come later. After Nanny Shi left, Yu Jie and Chu Lu looked nervous. Yesterday, the Empress summoned her, and today, it was not a good thing. Moreover, it was related to Xiao Yenru. Xiao Baolin's affairs had nothing to do with their master. Your Highness, don't worry. I think she wants to ask me about my visit to the Empress Dowager's palace yesterday, Xiao Wanru said with her long eyelashes fluttering. Xiao Wanru said with her long eyelashes fluttering twice. Although she did not know what had happened in the Imperial Palace yesterday, according to the rules of the last life, the Empress would definitely be reprimanded, but it was better than in the last life. At least the Empress Dowager was fine, and she didn't lose face in front of the officials. Plotting against the Empress Dowager and the Emperor would definitely incur the wrath of the Emperor and Empress Dowager. Yesterday, the palace would definitely not be peaceful, so the Empress summoned her today. The shock caused by this matter was much less than in her previous life. It was only a secret turmoil in the harem. In the eyes of outsiders, it was at least peaceful. After freshening up and changing into a light blue lotus leaf dress, Xiao Wanru entered the Imperial Palace through the side door with Yu Jie. When she arrived at the Empress's Fengyi Palace, someone immediately reported her arrival. Nanny Shi came out with a smile and said, "Princess Chen, please. The Empress has been waiting for you for a long time." As he said, he stepped aside to make way for Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru nodded to Nanny Shi and walked into the main hall, while Yu Jie stood outside the main hall obediently. When she got inside and saw the Empress sitting on the high seat, Xiao Wanru stepped forward and bowed. "Princess Jin, please sit down." The Empress said politely and asked the palace maid to lead Xiao Wanru to sit on a brocade stool on one side. There were not only the Empress in the main hall. There were 3 or 4 young and beautiful concubines, and they all looked at Xiao Wanru curiously. They all came to pay their respects to the Empress. After chatting with the Empress for a while, they were about to leave. They were supposed to leave, but the Empress said that it was nothing important and asked them to stay together. "Princess Jin, I heard that the Empress Dowager was frightened yesterday, and you were involved in it. What happened? Why did the Empress Dowager get so angry?" The Empress asked straightforwardly. Xiao Wanru raised her eyes and said with a little surprise, "Is Imperial Grandmother angry?" Her snow-white face was blank. The Empress's eyes fell on Xiao Wanru's face. Seeing nothing, she said slowly, "Princess Jin, do you know that after you entered the Imperial Palace yesterday, you made a mess in it?" Xiao Wanru's face also darkened. The Empress put all the blame on her without saying a word. "Your Highness, Imperial Grandmother just asked me a few ordinary questions, and then sent me back. She didn't say anything else, just some trivial things in Marquis Chingen's mansion. Your Highness, do you want to inquire about what I said at that time?" The Empress was taking advantage of her weakness and intended to put all the blame on her. Although the big consequences in the last life were suppressed in this life, she couldn't afford the turmoil in it. Judging from the Empress's appearance, she must have been reprimanded by the Emperor, and this was the result after the matter was suppressed. If it were the rules in the last life, the Empress would have been under supervision now. "How dare you speak to the Empress like this?" And reprimanded on behalf of the Empress. "Your Highness, what should I say now? Should I say what the Empress Dowager told me not to say?" Since Xiao Wanru's face darkened, she no longer pretended to be weak and let the Empress step on her. How dare you?" No one in the hall expected that Xiao Wanru would suddenly be so tough. The who was accused blushed, but she couldn't say a word. She couldn't say that the Empress's words were important and she should listen to the Empress. She could ignore the Empress Dowager's words. "No matter how timid I am not as bold as the Empress." She obviously wants to stir up discord between the two palaces. How can the Empress Dowager's words be spread casually? Everyone in the palace understands it. Even though I have stayed in the Yuhui nunnery for 3 years, I understand this rule. Why doesn't the Empress Dowager know this rule? Xiao Wanru said sarcastically. Since she didn't intend to be weak, she would be strong this time. At this time, the Empress didn't dare to make a big deal out of it. She hadn't cleared her name yet. If she made a big deal out of it, it would inevitably lead to a big disaster. Princess Jin, how dare you say such nonsense? How can I stir up discord between the two palaces? You are slandering me. Being scolded by Xiao Wanru, the couldn't sit down anymore. She stood up and shouted angrily. She just wanted to help the Empress, but she didn't expect that Princess Chen was so difficult to trample on. The rest of the S didn't say anything. Their eyes fell on Xiao Wanru and their expressions changed. When they first saw Princess Chen, everyone felt that she was gentle and graceful. Her eyes and eyebrows were soft and charming. Coupled with her exquisite facial features, she was a stunning beauty. Which of these women was not gentle enough to make people feel pity for them? It was just that there were no men present, so no one would feel pity for her. No one expected that Princess Chen and her appearance were so different from each other. Even when facing the Empress, she was so domineering. A clever looked at the Empress's face and lowered her head. Although the Empress was the master of the Imperial harem and the S in the palace were all supervised by the Empress, this Princess Chen was obviously not to be trifled with. Prince Chen was also a reckless person. No one knew if she would cause any trouble when she came back. They were not the Empress. No matter how hard Prince Chen made a scene, he couldn't do anything to the Empress. The first prince suddenly quieted down. Some of the S tidied up the handkerchiefs in their hands, some tidied up their sleeves, and some played with the bracelets on their hands, as if none of them was paying attention to the matter in front of them. Your Highness, do you mean this? The Empress and the Empress Dowager will judge you. As for slander, I didn't mean you, so why do you have to drag me here with a guilty conscience? Xiao Wanru said coldly. Since she had said it, she was really not afraid of this kind of. The in front of her should be the kind who flattered the Empress. She jumped out to stand up for the Empress before the Empress did anything, but she didn't know how important she was. Princess Chen, I just want to ask what you said in the Empress Dowager's palace yesterday. Since the Empress Dowager told me not to tell it to others, you can just not say it. Why don't you take the Emperors seriously? No matter how bad she is still your elder. The Empress finally spoke in a tone full of displeasure. They reacted quickly. With a plop, she knelt in front of the Empress and cried sadly, Your Majesty, I just kindly reminded Princess Chen, but Princess Chen treated me like this. I feel ashamed to see the Emperor. After saying that, she stood up and covered her face with her long sleeves, as if she was about to hit the pillar on one side. The palace maids beside her hurriedly pulled her back. They had already cried so hard that she couldn't speak. She was pulled to the ground by several palace maids and knelt on the ground while crying. Your Highness, please help me. Princess Chen, it was just a trivial matter. I don't know why you made such a scene. How can I explain it to the Empress Dowager and the Emperor? The Empress looked at Xiao Wanru with a gloomy face and said, Since it was Princess Chen who provoked it, Princess Chen should be punished. Punish? Wait. Xiao Wanru raised her voice and interrupted the Empress. The Yi who fell to the ground, burst into tears again and waved her hands and feet as if she wanted to get up. Your Highness, I really don't know what happened. The Empress asked me what the Empress Dowager said to me yesterday. I said I couldn't say what Imperial grandmother said, so this became embarrassed and forced me to continue to say it. Now she deliberately wanted to die. The Empress immediately felt that she was right and I was wrong, so she wanted to punish me. If I was wrong, should I say what I said to the Empress Dowager yesterday? Xiao Wanru looked at the Empress calmly. The things before and after were strung together, just like a process. The Empress asked someone to attack her, and the Empress punished her. No matter what punishment the Empress came up with, Xiao Wanru would not admit it. Otherwise, her face and Chu Liuchen's face would be trampled by the Empress. She used Prince Chen's mansion to save the Empress's face and let the Empress push the blame to Prince Chen's mansion. At this time, she couldn't retreat. Chapter 1088. Princess Jin, do you know what you mean? Seeing that no one in the hall spoke except for the who was forced to come forward, the Empress had to ask in person. Your Highness, I know what I'm talking about. I'll say the same even in front of the Empress Dowager and the Emperor. Xiao Wanru raised her head and said coldly. That pair of soft and charming eyes, when observed carefully, were full of fierceness. There was no fear in them, and they looked at the Empress without avoiding her gaze. Her identity meant that the Empress couldn't deal with her in private. In this case, she didn't have to yield to the Empress. The Empress was a paper tiger now and didn't dare to do anything to her. As expected, after hearing her words, the Empress was so angry that her face turned pale, and then she slowly retreated. Finally, strangely, her face softened. She asked someone to pull the up and let her sit aside. Princess Jin, I don't want to know what the Empress Dowager said to you. I'm just worried about the peace of the Imperial harem. Since the Empress Dowager said so, I won't reprimand you. However, it's really embarrassing for you to quarrel with them. Even if you have done something wrong, you are still rude. The Empress said. She also reprimanded her, but her voice was not as harsh as before. Xiao Wanru withdrew the fierce look on her face and bowed respectfully to the Empress. She said neither humbly nor arrogantly, I thought someone was plotting against Imperial Grandmother just now, so I spoke too hastily. Please forgive me, Your Highness. She only said that she spoke too hastily, but refused to admit her mistake. Her words showed that she was defending the Empress Dowager. Even if the Empress wanted to suppress Xiao Wanru, she had no reason to do so. Her words were reasonable and precise. Your Highness, please help me. Xiao Wanru was so calm, but the panicked. She looked up at the Empress and begged while wiping her tears. She also regretted it in her heart. At the moment she was in a dilemma. If she had known it earlier, she wouldn't have rushed out at that time. Unexpectedly, Princess Jin, who looked young and charming, had such a fierce temper. It was not enough for her to make a scene. If the Emperor knew about it, something bad would happen. At this time, she didn't want to make any mistakes. The other concubines all lowered their heads. They thought that the Empress was strong and wanted to help. At this moment, they were glad that they didn't react fast enough. You can go back first. I will tell His Majesty about this, said the Empress. The concubine didn't dare to make any more noise. She held the hand of the palace maid and left while crying. Princess Jin, I will report this matter to His Majesty. The Empress said lightly. Thank you, Your Highness, for handling it impartially. Xiao Wanru bowed respectfully again. Actually, the most important thing for me to call you here today is your eldest sister's matter. I just asked casually about the Empress Dowager's matter. Because you came to the palace, many things happened in the palace yesterday. As the master of the harem, I should ask clearly, the Empress said with a serious face. He wanted to explain the battle of the two palaces that he had previously mentioned. Xiao Wanru stopped while she was ahead. She asked with a slight frown, what happened to Xiao Baolin again? Xiao Baolin is sick, very sick, the Empress said. Xiao Wanru looked up in astonishment and asked, Xiao Baolin is very sick? He has been sick for a long time. Originally, he caught a cold, but later it became more and more serious. The Imperial physician also went to see him and said that he had a slim chance of survival. The Empress said in a deep voice. Did the Imperial physician say so? Xiao Wanru said with a trace of deepness in her watery eyes. Was Xiao Yanru going to die of illness? She really couldn't believe it. That's what the Imperial physician said. This time, he summoned you to the Imperial palace to see him. If anything happens to him, he will see someone in his mansion. No one else in your Marquis Xing's mansion can enter the Imperial palace at this time, the Empress said. Thank you, Your Highness. Xiao Wanru agreed. At this time, she had to agree. In front of outsiders, she and Xiao Yanru were not on good terms, but it was not the time to care about it. Xiao Yanru was about to die, but she still cared about it, which made others look down on her and think she was a little cold-blooded. Come on, take Princess Jin to see Xiao Baolin. The Empress waved her hand and said, Nanny. She stood out from behind the Empress, took the task with a smile, and then left with Xiao Wanru. Seeing Xiao Wanru leave, the S immediately said goodbye. After walking out of the gate of the Fengyi Palace, they breathed a sigh of relief and secretly decided not to rely on Princess Chen when they encountered her in the future. She was not to be trifled with. Neither Prince Chen nor Princess Chen could be trifled with. After everyone left, the Empress's face darkened, and she suppressed her anger on her face. "How dare a little Princess Chen disobey me? Your Highness, you don't have to be angry. Prince Chen is behind Princess Chen, so you didn't do anything rash to her. Without Prince Chen, Princess Chen is nothing." A close nanny came forward to persuade the Empress. "Your Highness, don't worry. Isn't there Princess Yutao of the Su Kingdom? I heard that Princess Yutao is not only beautiful but also very heroic. Prince Chen is in poor health, so he must prefer a heroic woman." Another nanny persuaded. After hearing their words, the Empress's face softened a little. She nodded and said, "I underestimated Princess Chen. I didn't expect that she dared to contradict me." She had thought that it was very easy to get information about what happened in the Empress Dowager's palace from Xiao Wanru. She didn't expect that Xiao Wanru was so difficult to deal with that she didn't know where to start and behaved in a domineering manner. With Chu Luchen behind her, the emperor really didn't dare to do anything to her. Moreover, she had just been reprimanded by the emperor yesterday. At this moment, she shouldn't cause any other trouble. But what on earth did Xiao Wanru say to the Empress Dowager yesterday that made the Empress Dowager so angry and even let the emperor reprimand her? The Empress was lost in thought, wondering where she got the information. If she knew who was behind it, she would definitely not let her go. Of course, Concubine Da was the most likely culprit. Chu Liwei had been eyeing the throne, and he and Chu Liuzhou had secretly plotted against each other many times. Keep an eye on Concubine Da. As soon as Prince Yu entered the palace, he asked someone to keep an eye on her. The Empress said unwillingly. She didn't believe that she wouldn't find anything if she kept an eye on her. The Empress didn't get any benefits from Xiao Wanru, so she vented all her anger on Concubine Da. Although there had been someone secretly keeping an eye on Concubine Da, there weren't as many as there were now. Outside the palace where Concubine Da lived, people could be seen passing by from time to time. For a moment, Concubine Da's residence was also in a state of panic. Xiao Wanru followed Nanny Shi for a long time before they arrived at Xiao Yinru's residence. It was a small courtyard, much smaller than Xiao Yinru's courtyard in Marquis Xing's mansion. There were only 3 simple rooms. The main room was only a little bigger than the 2 rooms beside it. As soon as she entered the door, she smelled a strong smell of medicine. A palace maid squatting in the corridor heard the sound and looked up to see Xiao Wanru. She was surprised and delighted. She hurriedly dropped the palm leaf fan in her hand and ran over to salute. "Greetings, Princess Chen." It was Han Dan, the palace maid who followed Xiao Yenru. "How is your master?" Xiao Wanru waved her hand to indicate that she didn't need to salute and asked. Our master, our master." Han Dan's eyes turned red. She wiped her tears and couldn't even speak for a moment. "Princess Chen, I'm going back to report to the Empress." Nanny Shi didn't go in. Instead, she looked at the empty and small courtyard in disgust and said, "Thank you, Nanny Shi." Xiao Wanru nodded. "Nanny Shi, please wait. Our master has something important to tell you." Xiao Yenru's maid, Moyan, suddenly appeared in the corridor. She was sent to the Imperial Palace to serve Xiao Yenru. She hadn't seen her for a long time, but she looked much thinner and gloomy. She walked to the corridor, bowed sideways to Xiao Wanru first, and then bowed to Nanny Shi. Moyan had met Nanny Shi in Marquis Xing's mansion before. Nanny Shi looked her up and down and said arrogantly, "I have something to deal with at the Empress's place, so I won't see Xiao Baolin." After saying that, she turned around and was about to leave. Given Xiao Yenru's current situation, anyone who met her would be unlucky. Nanny Shi didn't think it would be good for her to go in. "Nanny, please wait. This is a gift from our master." Moyan took out a small pouch from her bosom and handed it to Nanny Shi. Nanny Shi took it and pinched it. She didn't feel that it was a banknote, but something made of jade. It felt smooth, but it was easy to put in her hand. Although she didn't know what it was, she felt that it should be a very good object. Xiao Yanru was the eldest lineal daughter of Marquis Xing's mansion before she entered the Imperial Palace, so she had a lot of good things. It must be one of them which was much more valuable than those banknotes. Thinking of this, Nanny Shi immediately showed a smile and said, "Since your master said so, I'll go and have a look. Your master has been ill for a long time, and it will be troublesome if she continues to be ill." "Thank you for your concern, Nanny Shi. Our master said that she feels much better and should be able to recover after taking a few more doses of medicine." Moyin breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile on her face. Xiao Wanru turned her eyes from Nanny Shi's face to Moyin, so Xiao Yanru was not seriously ill but just ill. The Empress had called her into the Imperial Palace with this reason and asked her about what had happened in the Empress Dowager's palace yesterday. Xiao Yanru's matter was just an excuse. Sure enough, Xiao Yanru wouldn't die so easily. Even though she was in such a miserable state in the Imperial Palace, she still stirred up trouble in the dark. "Prince Jin, let's go in and have a look together." After talking to Moyin, Nanny Shi said to Xiao Wanru with a smile. Xiao Wanru nodded and walked inside. She hadn't seen Xiao Yanru for a long time, but no matter how long it was, she would never forget that there was a beautiful snake lying in the palace, and it was the most poisonous kind. No matter when it was, she had to deal with it carefully and couldn't let Xiao Yanru take advantage of her carelessly. What had happened before, even if it happened outside the Imperial Palace, Xiao Yanru couldn't keep her hands clean. Chapter 1089. It was a very simple room with good decoration, but it was totally different from Xiao Yanru's room in Marquis Xing's mansion that day. Fortunately, although the decoration was simple, it was clean. Turning around the screen, she saw Xiao Yanru lying on the bed. She was wearing a very simple white dress, leaning against the headboard with a white ribbon tied around her head. She looked haggard and pale, and her cherry lips were pale. It could be seen that Xiao Yanru was in a bad condition. But she inexplicably looked delicate and pitiful. Xiao Wanru stopped and looked at Xiao Yanru's face. She had seen Madame D and Madame Jiang become so thin that her bones could be seen, but she had never seen Xiao Yanru as thin as this. She was very thin, pitiful, and even pitiful. Thinking of her identity as the legitimate eldest daughter of Marquis Xing, she felt pitiful that she had fallen into such a poor position. Leaning against the wall, she looked at them with pitiful eyes. Her hair was disheveled and her clothes were simple, but they did not damage her beauty. Even Xiao Wanru felt her heart skip a beat when she saw her. Xiao Yanru was not as noble as she used to be, but looked a little more delicate and pitiful. No matter how serious the matter was, Xiao Yanru, who was in such a poor condition and had little time left, could not care less about it. "Fifth sister, Nanny Shi." Hearing the voice at the door, Xiao Yanru looked up with slightly red eyes and looked a little excited. She reached out to support herself against the headboard and tried to sit up. However, she was so weak that her body went limp. Han Dan hurriedly took 2 steps forward and held her. She helped her sit up slowly and took a few thick cushions to put behind her to make her sit up. She leaned back and said weakly, "Thank you, fifth sister and Nanny Shi, for coming to see me." "Bao Lin, are you feeling better?" Nanny Shi looked Xiao Yanru up and down and asked. "A little better. The medicine delivered before is very good. I feel much better after taking it," Xiao Yanru said softly. Although she looked weak, her beauty was not affected. That's good, Nanny Shi said with a smile. She looked around and fixed her eyes on a few long brocade boxes on the table. There were 3 or 4 brocade boxes. The top one was half open, and a few ginseng roots could be seen. Nanny Shi's eyes lit up involuntarily. Ordinary people could not afford such good ginseng. Xiao Yanru did not seem to be able to afford this kind of ginseng at the moment, not to mention that it was obviously sent by someone. "If Xiao Baolin needs anything, Nanny Shi said politely. Her eyes fell on the brocade box of ginseng. The Empress disliked Xiao Yanru very much. Even if Xiao Yanru really begged her, she would ignore her. This time, an imperial physician came to help Xiao Yanru, and it was said that he used other means. Nanny Shi didn't care much about it at first. The so-called other means were at most for the sake of Marquis Xing's mansion, so they invited an imperial physician to help Xiao Yanru. He didn't expect to see such a good medicinal herb here. Could it be that this Xiao Baolin would have a chance to make a comeback? Nanny, she was old and shrewd. When she entered the door, she saw that Xiao Baolin looked tired but had a pitiful look. Even she couldn't help but feel her heart skip a beat. If a man saw Xiao Baolin's look, he would definitely feel sorry for him. What if the emperor saw it? Thinking of this, she immediately became more attentive. She took a stool to Xiao Yinru's bed, held Xiao Yinru's hand, and said with tears, "Why is Xiao Baolin in such poor health? He used to be such a good person, but now he is so ill. Don't worry, Xiao Baolin. I will definitely ask the Imperial physician to take good care of him and make him recover soon." "Thank you for your kind words, Nanny Shi," Xiao Yinru said with a faint blush on her pale face and lowered her head shyly. Even Nanny Shi felt pity for her and her heart trembled when she saw her. "Well, Xiao Baolin, take a rest first. I'll come to see you later." Nanny Shi stood up and said, "I won't disturb Baolin and Princess Qin now. Moyan, see Nanny Shi out for me," Xiao Yinru said softly. Moyan answered and saw Nanny Shi out. "Princess Qin, please sit down." The smile on Xiao Yinru's face faded slowly. She closed her eyes weakly, looked at Xiao Wanru, who was standing beside her, and said. Xiao Wanru sat down and looked at Xiao Yinru's face with burning eyes, but she did not say anything. "Do you feel especially relieved? Do you feel that I only have myself to blame for falling to such a state?" Xiao Yinru said with a faint look and then said with a wry smile, "I did bring this upon myself. I deserve everything, but I regret it so much." Speaking of this, Xiao Yinru's eyes turned red. She lowered her head and did not want Xiao Wanru to see the vulnerability in her eyes. Then she slowly raised her head and said, "Fifth sister, I was wrong. I was really wrong. Fifth miss, please save my master." Moyan came in and saw this scene. She knelt down in front of Xiao Wanru with a plop, wiped away her tears, and said, "My master will die if she keeps being locked here." Moyan also knelt down and said, "Princess Qin, please save my master." Xiao Wanru's eyes were extremely calm. She didn't care about the two people kneeling down and looked at Xiao Yinru. At this time, Xiao Yinru looked extremely pitiful. Her beautiful face was full of regret and hatred. She looked at Xiao Wanru with longing eyes, as if Xiao Wanru was all her hope. "Xiao Baolin, no matter whether you believe it or not, I'm here today to see your illness, and I'm under the order of Her Majesty. Now that I've seen it and Xiao Baolin is fine, I'll go back first." After saying that, Xiao Wanru stood up and turned to go out. "Fifth miss, Princess Qin," Moyan and Moyan shouted anxiously. Xiao Wanru didn't stop and continued to walk out. Yujia was stunned for a moment and hurriedly followed her. "Master, I'm going to chase after the 5th Mississippi." Moyan stood up and was about to chase after her. "Don't chase after her." Xiao Yinru snorted coldly and hid the weakness on her face. A trace of malice flashed across the bottom of her eyes. Xiao Wanru's visit today was an accident, which she didn't expect. She originally wanted to get closer to her through Xiao Wanru. Even if they couldn't get rid of the former grudges, they could at least ease their relationship. She didn't expect Xiao Wanru to react like this. "Master." Seeing Xiao Wanru disappear, Moyan stamped her feet anxiously. "Xiao Wanru won't give in so easily." Xiao Yinru looked out of the room with her gloomy eyes, and there was no trace of the weakness she had sensed just now. Xiao Wanru was just an accident. Although there was such an accident in her plan, it didn't matter if there was no such accident. It didn't matter. Moreover, the accident had already happened. "Master." Xiao Wanru came out of Xiao Yinru's room and went straight in the direction of Prince Chen's mansion. Yujia led the way in front. She was excellent at recognizing the way. Although it was the first time she came here, she had been careful all the way, so she didn't get lost. The roads in this area were very remote, and there was almost no one in sight. After walking for a while, she suddenly saw a eunuch jump out of the roadside. He looked at them with an extremely kind smile and said, "Greetings, Princess Qin." The eunuch smiled and blocked the way of Xiao Wanru and her maid. "Who are you?" Yujia took a step forward, stopped him, and looked him up and down vigilantly. This was a eunuch that neither of them had seen before. I'm ordered by concubine Lan to give this letter to Princess Chen. The eunuch took out a letter from his bosom and handed it over. Yu Jie said doubtfully, "You are concubine Lan's maid. What can you prove?" "I don't have anything to prove it, but Nanny Zheng, the maid of Princess Chen, used to be the chief palace maid of concubine Lan. She used to follow concubine Lan." The eunuch lowered his voice and answered with a smile, "Princess Chen, take the letter first. I'm afraid that others will see it." Before Yu Jie could speak, Xiao Wanru had already said softly, "Take it." Yu Jie took it and then hid the letter under her sleeve. "Princess Chen, concubine Lan asked you to be careful. It's not peaceful in the palace recently. If you send a gift to the Empress Dowager, just treat it as an ordinary gift. There's no need to be eye-catching. Since Prince Chen is not here, you should be more careful and don't cause unnecessary trouble for Prince Chen." Seeing Yu Jie take the letter, the eunuch breathed a sigh of relief. After saying this, he bowed to Xiao Wanru and turned to leave. "How could you say that?" Yu Jie was so angry that she wanted to stomp her feet. It sounded like her master was a troublemaker who specially caused trouble for Prince Chen. Xiao Wanru stopped Yu Jie, shook her head at her, and said calmly, "Let's go." "Your Highness." Yu Jie was extremely angry, but she could only continue to walk out. The rest of the way was very peaceful, and no unexpected people appeared. Instead of going to the Empress's Fengyi Palace, they took a turn in front of the Fengyi Palace to the familiar road, and then returned to Prince Chen's mansion. When they arrived at the main room, Xiao Wanru sat down. Chu Lu served tea and asked worriedly, "Your Highness, did the Empress make things difficult for you when she invited you over?" "Why not?" One of the S even quarreled with her master and was taken away later. Yu Jie stood outside the main hall at that time and had been very worried when she saw the go back in tears. Fortunately, the princess had been very calm after she came out, and Nanny she also seemed to curry favor with her. "It's not a big deal. The Empress just wanted to put pressure on me and make me say what the Empress Dowager told me. Now it's all right." Xiao Wanru shook her head. The Empress would not really put up a life-and-death struggle until she reached a dead end. "Yu Jie, give me the letter and then go to invite Nanny Zheng over." She had to ask Nanny Zheng to check whether the letter was from concubine Lan. "Yes, I'll go to invite her now." Yu Jie nodded, took out the letter from her sleeve, presented it respectfully, and then left in a hurry to find Nanny Zheng. Chapter 1090. Nanny Zheng came very quickly. After entering the door, she bowed to Xiao Wanru first. "Nanny, take a look. Is this written by concubine Lan?" Xiao Wanru asked straightforwardly. Nanny Zheng took the letter with a heavy face and glanced at it. After seeing the handwriting on it and a small mark on the envelope clearly, she nodded and said, "Your Highness, it is indeed written by concubine Lan. There is a small mark here. Do you think it looks like an orchid?" Xiao Wanru took the letter, looked at it and shook her head. The mark was very shallow and small, but it didn't look like an orchid. It seemed to be left there accidentally. "Your Highness, please turn it over and have a look," Nanny Zheng said with a slight smile. Xiao Wanru turned the letter in her hand. When she looked at the mark again, it vaguely looked like an orchid. But if she didn't say it, she might not be able to guess it. It was completely in the style of cursive calligraphy and painting. When I left the Imperial Palace that day, concubine Lan once mentioned it to me. In fact, I originally wanted to go to Prince Chen's mansion that day. Nanny Zheng sighed with a trace of bitterness in her eyes and said, "Your Highness, please rest assured. Concubine Lan will never have any bad intentions towards you." Xiao Wanru glanced at Nanny Zheng and asked, "What's the relationship between concubine Lan and the prince?" "I don't dare to talk nonsense about the relationship between concubine Lan and the prince." Nanny Zheng lowered her head. Seeing her reaction, Xiao Wanru knew that she would definitely not say it, so she didn't force her. She opened the letter and read it. The more she read, the more serious her face became. The letter described what had happened in the Imperial Palace yesterday. The Empress was reprimanded by the Emperor in the Imperial study, and concubine Da was summoned to the Imperial Palace by the Empress Dowager. Many people in the Imperial Palace were guessing what Xiao Wanru had said to the Empress Dowager after entering the Imperial Palace. Was it a coincidence, or the Empress Dowager had specially summoned her? Before her, Marquis Chen met the Empress Dowager and was scolded. The Empress Dowager was so angry that she even beat him. After Marquis Chen, Xiao Wanru was summoned, followed by the Emperor, and finally Concubine Da. Among these people, Xiao Wanru was the only one who seemed to be incompatible with the whole situation. She seemed to be an outsider who accidentally got involved in the game, but also seemed to be the most important part of the whole thing. Concubine Lan warned Xiao Wanru that she couldn't stand out at this moment. She should keep a low profile and avoid any trouble. Chu Luchen was not in the capital city, so she needed to be more careful. She also told Chu Luchen that it was impossible for him to arrive in the capital city on the day of the Empress Dowager's birthday. Xiao Wanru read the letter in her hand twice and then slowly put it down with a frown. These words were not groundless. "Your Highness, did Concubine Lan say anything important?" Seeing her put down the letter, Nanny Jing said anxiously, "Did something serious happen? Otherwise, Concubine Lan would not have contacted you at this time." Xiao Wanru glanced at Nanny Zheng in surprise, but she didn't ask for the reason. She nodded and said, "She told me what happened in the palace yesterday. The Empress was reprimanded and Concubine Da was also involved. Yesterday, I went to the palace to meet the Empress Dowager. Many people think that these things may have something to do with me." Hearing her words, several of her trusted subordinates couldn't help but gasp. "Your Highness, did someone deliberately lead the topic to you?" Yu Jie said. "I think so too. Why do I feel that it must have something to do with you?" Chu Lu also said. Xiao Wanru pursed her pink and tender lips tightly. Thinking of what happened to the Empress before, if someone secretly added fuel to the fire and pushed the blame to her and made her attract all the attention, the Empress must have substantiated the matter. She left those S here just to let them spread the rumor that she was the key to all the things. Today, the Empress summoned her not to make it clear what she had said to the Empress Dowager, but to make this rumor true and put her in danger imperceptibly. Concubine Lan's letter was a little vague before. Now, she immediately understood that she was in danger and was suspected by all forces. How could she have a good ending? "Your Highness, you should keep a low profile at this time. The prince is not in the mansion, and you are the only master. You can't make any mistake." Nanny Zheng looked more nervous than Xiao Wanru, and her face was slightly pale. It could be seen that she was really panicking. This was not the first time that the two maids had seen Nanny Zheng, who had always been calm, panic. Yu Jie and Chu Li's faces immediately darkened. "Your Highness, pretend to be sick." Yu Jie came up with an idea and said. Nanny Zheng shook her head and said, "No, it's too deliberate, which will make people more suspicious. Moreover, if someone wants to deal with you, even if you pretend to be sick, they can still do it." It was too far-fetched to pretend to be sick at this time. In the past, if the princess pretended to be sick, it would not be a big deal. At most, she would lose the favor of the Empress Dowager and others. But now it was not the best time. Then let's get out of here first. Don't stay in this mansion. Let's go to Great Elder Princess's mansion. Hearing that someone might come to deal with the princess, Chu Lu was so scared that she reached out to pull Xiao Wanru's sleeve and said, "Your Highness, let's go to Great Elder Princess's mansion. There are many guards in Great Elder Princess's mansion." If the prince was here, of course, they wouldn't care. But now there was only the princess in the mansion, so Chu Lu was really worried. "No, we can't hide in Great Elder Princess's mansion. We are more likely to bring trouble to Great Elder Princess. Although there are guards in Great Elder Princess's mansion, those guards are far inferior to the guards in Prince Chen's mansion." Nanny Zheng objected again. "We can't do this or that. What should we do? We can't just watch something happen to the princess." Chu Lu was so anxious that she was about to cry. She didn't think so before Nanny Zheng said it. But now, after listening to Nanny Zheng's analysis, Chu Lu felt that there were many shadows around and no place was safe. Xiao Wanru pulled herself together, thought for a while, and said, "We won't go anywhere. We'll just stay in Prince Chen's mansion. We don't need the maple leaf painting." Let's just use the table screen. The table screen was embroidered by Xiao Wanru herself, and she had prepared it as a congratulatory gift a long time ago. After all, one painting was not enough, so it would be more thoughtful to offer a table screen. At present, the maple leaf painting was the key to everything, so it was better not to take it out if possible. I'll add some other treasures to the table screen as a congratulatory gift for the Empress Dowager. Such a congratulatory gift was neither outstanding nor shabby, and it also showed the sincerity, but it was not particularly conspicuous. It was a necessary congratulatory gift for her as a granddaughter-in-law. Without the maple leaf painting, at least people would doubt her a little less. This time, she also made a mistake. Originally, she didn't want to make Chu Luchen sad. Chu Luchen had always cared about the Empress Dowager, who doted on him and had always protected him. Unexpectedly, he was in trouble now. It could only be said that the water in this matter was too deep. Based on her previous life, which she knew little about, she thought too little. At present, she could only make up for it in this way. Your Highness, what should we do if someone comes into the mansion to deal with you? Yu Jie was still worried. Even if the birthday gift was arranged properly, other things could not be done. There were not many guards in Prince Chen's mansion on the surface now, which Chu Luchen had told Xiao Wanru before he left. As for the subordinates, some of them were in the hands of the chief butler, who told her that they could be used in times of crisis. However, Xiao Wanru didn't want to use these people to protect herself at this time. This would make people pay more attention to Chu Luchen. She couldn't let Chu Luchen fall into danger because of her negligence. When the road ahead was unknown, there were so many people secretly spying on him. At present, Chu Liuchen's reputation was not legitimate, so it would be dangerous for him to expose his strength in front of others at this time. Nanny Jing, I know what to do. Don't worry. You go back first and don't go anywhere tonight. Restrain the others in the mansion with Nanny Yu. Something may happen tonight, so don't panic. I'll ask the chief butler to arrange everything. There will be no danger. Xiao Wanru comforted them. Your Highness, are you sure that nothing will happen? Nanny Zheng was obviously not comforted. Looking at the childish little princess in front of her, Nanny Zheng was really worried. Although the princess didn't look as weak as she looked, she was just a girl who had not reached the age of 15 after all. At such a young age, she had been raised in a boudoir, so she had never experienced such a dangerous thing. Nanny Zheng, don't worry. I'll ask the chief butler to make a decision on this matter. Even if I have no idea, I still have the chief butler, right? Xiao Wanru said unhurriedly. Seeing that she was so calm and steady, Yu Jie and Chu Lu both breathed a sigh of relief and even showed a smile on their faces. The princess would definitely have a way, so they didn't have to panic. Only Nanny Jing still felt worried. After thinking for a while, she said, Your Highness, if you have no idea, I'll go to the Imperial Palace to ask Concubine Lan if you can go to the Imperial Palace to hide in Concubine Lan's place. Concubine Lan will protect you and won't let anyone hurt you. I don't need to go to Concubine Lan's place. Concubine Lan has been in trouble herself. If she has to protect me, something bad will definitely happen. Nanny Jing, don't worry. I'll be fine. Xiao Wanru refused with a smile. If Concubine Lan was really fine, she wouldn't have been protected and locked up by the emperor for so many years. Although the emperor had protected her all the time, she was still tightly locked up and had no freedom. Xiao Wanru didn't think it was a good idea to go to the Imperial Palace to ask Concubine Lan for help. Moreover, why did she go to the Imperial Palace and why did she find Concubine Lan? Since she was unwilling to leave Prince Chen's mansion, there must be a reason for her not to leave, and there must be a reason to stop those who secretly wanted to hurt her. After Nanny Zheng was persuaded to leave, Qing and the chief butler were called over. After listening to Xiao Wanru's story, the chief butler's face immediately changed. He had been in the Imperial Palace for a long time, so he naturally knew that Xiao Wanru was in a bad situation at the moment. Your Highness, you are the key to everything now. The Emperor and the Empress Dowager must have suspected Prince Yu and Prince Zhou, as well as Concubine Da and the Empress behind them for the matter of the maple leaf painting. Because they didn't expose it in front of everyone, they just secretly investigated it. But if something happens to you, who is at the key, it will be a big deal. The chief butler immediately grasped all the key points and pointed out Xiao Wanru's danger. Chapter 1091. The mastermind behind this incident had yet to surface. The people in the Imperial Palace guessed that it was the Empress and concubine Da, but maybe it was not. Someone deliberately stirred up trouble, made the Imperial Court and the Imperial Palace into chaos, and even forced the Emperor to take action against his son. The maple leaf painting was the main plot before, but now Xiao Wanru was the key. Xiao Wanru knew that if nothing happened to her, this matter would be investigated slowly and secretly. Even if others had doubts, they would not know the truth of the matter. Marquis Chingan's mansion would not say it, the Empress Dowager and the Emperor would not say it, and of course, she would not say it. But if something happened to her, this matter could not be suppressed even if she wanted to. It would inevitably cause the entire Imperial Court and even the whole situation to change dramatically. It might even cause chaos in the Imperial Court and other forces to suddenly rise. In the last life, it happened on the birthday of the Empress Dowager, and then it ended with Prince Zhou usurping the throne. After Prince Zhou's death, this matter seemed to have disappeared on the surface. Xiao Wanru did not know what else had happened during this period. At present, it seemed that this matter was more than that, and she accidentally got into the center of the storm. Chief Butler, since it has come to this, I have an idea. What do you think? The pedestrians on the horses were in a hurry. A group of people galloped on the official road. They were all dressed in black clothes. At first glance, it was obvious that they were not ordinary people. The pedestrians on both sides stepped aside. Suddenly, the person in front reined in the galloping horse and stopped. All the galloping horses behind him also reined in an instant, and their movements were synchronized. The group of people temporarily rested in a pavilion by the roadside, and the accompanying people surrounded the pavilion to prevent outsiders from approaching. Chu Luchen was covered with a large black cloak and a veil to block the dust on his face, revealing a pair of beautiful eyes. He was not as gentle and handsome as he used to be, but more fierce and murderous. He sat down on the stone bench in the pavilion. A carrier pigeon fell from the sky and landed in the hands of a guard beside him. The guard skillfully took out a rolled letter from under the feathers of the carrier pigeon and respectfully presented it to Chu Luchen. After taking it and reading it, Chu Luchen closed his eyes slightly with cold eyes and ordered to prepare the brush and ink. Yes. The guard hurriedly prepared the brush and ink. Chu Luchen stood up, held the brush and thought for a while, and immediately waved the brush. When he was done, he picked up the paper, looked at it, and nodded. When the ink was dry, the Imperial bodyguard folded the paper and stuffed it back under the pigeon's wings. He threw the pigeon into the air and the pigeon spread its wings, disappearing into the horizon. How long will it take to get to the capital city? Chu Luchen sat down again and asked. We can arrive before the Empress Dowager's birthday. The leader of the guards said respectfully. They left the carriages behind and rushed to the capital because they wanted to be in time for the Empress Dowager's birthday. The carriage was still behind, accompanying the two princesses of the Su Kingdom all the way to the capital city. The carriage in the front was Chu Liuchen's, but now it was empty. Only Xiao Xuanzi kept it in order not to let others see the flaw. Of course, he didn't care if the two princesses of the Su Kingdom, Qin Huaiyong and Chu Qing saw through him. He just wanted to prevent someone from secretly stopping him from returning to the capital city quickly. On the way to the capital, there were always some accidents. It was clear that someone was deliberately trying to stop him. Since that was the case, he abandoned the carriage and galloped towards the capital. Master, is there an accident in the capital city? The leader of the guards, Cheng, asked. He was an orphan who was picked up by Chu Luchen from the pile of corpses when he was a child. Those who came later followed Chu Luchen and were loyal to him. There was indeed an accident in the capital city. This was a carrier pigeon sent by the chief butler. Only the chief butler knew that he was going to the capital city. Even Xiao Wanru didn't tell him clearly, for fear that someone would target her. It was best not to know. Unexpectedly, even so, there were still people who wanted to take advantage of her. Chu Liuchen's eyes were cold and ruthless. Since someone wanted to target her, don't blame him for stirring up the situation in the capital city. Didn't they want him to go to the capital city quickly? He would stir up the situation first. There is no major accident. Continue to march faster and return to the capital city as soon as possible. Chu Luchen narrowed his eyes slightly with an evil and cold smile. Master, how are you feeling? And Ching was worried about his health and asked in a low voice. Although the prince was in good health now, those who had been following him for a long time would still worry about him. The prince, who had been holding a medicine pot for so many years, had he really recovered? I am in good health now, Chu Luchen said lightly. He stood up gracefully and strode to the horse outside the pavilion. He took the reins from a guard and jumped on the horse. A group of guards behind him also got on the horse. With a flick of the whip, the horse galloped forward. And Cheng was on the first horse next to Chu Luchen. He looked at Prince Qin on the horse in front of him worriedly and sighed secretly in his heart. Xiao Xuanzi was right. His master wanted to protect the princess regardless of his own health. He thought more highly of the princess in his heart. Even if he had always been strong, he couldn't bear such a long journey, not to mention that the prince had always been in such a sick and weak body. Even if he recovered now, his body was similar to that of an ordinary person. He gestured to a guard beside him. The guard nodded and galloped out of the line to find a place to rest. After finding a suitable place, he had to let the prince have a good rest. And Qing took a few steps back and lowered his voice to Qi Ju on a horse beside him. Dr. Qi, my body. Qi Ju was so tired by the rapid march that he didn't even want to speak. He waved his hand impatiently and gasped for breath. Don't ask me. I'm dying of exhaustion. My body is definitely better than mine. But if we keep marching like this, no matter how good a person is, he can't bear it. You'd better persuade me to rest early. Qi Ju felt that he had suffered a great loss. Originally, it was very good for him to follow behind the carriage and stop from time to time. But why did they abandon the carriage and march hurriedly with him? He was just a doctor, not an imperial bodyguard. Why did he ask him to follow them? In fact, it didn't matter much whether he was a doctor or not. That's good. Take care, Dr. Qi. Hearing that his master was in good health, and Cheng calmed down. Looking at Dr. Qi's weak look, he teased him and said, Dr. Qi, you'd better practice your body more. If you stay like this, I'm afraid that you can't even marry a wife. Hey, how can you say that? Qi Ju was unhappy. He wiped the sweat on his face and said angrily. He hated talking about marrying a wife the most. Take care, Dr. Qi. I still have to see my master. And Cheng left with a laugh. Chu Luchen covered his tracks and rushed all the way to the capital city, which was unexpected by everyone. At present, these people's focus was on Prince Chen's mansion. The chief butler received the news from the carrier pigeon in the evening. After sitting in the room for a while, he specially went to find Xiao Wanru. After the discussion between the two, the chief butler returned to the front yard again. Usually, the affairs of Prince Chen's mansion were handled by the chief butler in the front yard. Every day, the chief butler would handle the affairs very late, especially when Chu Luchen was not in the mansion. Otherwise, he could let Xiao Xuanzi handle some affairs, because Xiao Xuanzi was the successor that the chief butler prepared for himself. The night gradually grew darker. At this time, it was almost late spring. The weather was getting hotter and the night was getting later. But even so, after the sun went down, the sky immediately darkened and gradually darkened. The light in Xiao Wanru's inner courtyard was still on, and she was not asleep. Under the shadow of the lamp, there should be more than one person, and there should be a few servant girls. From time to time, there was the sound of people talking, which was very eye-catching in the night. No one knew where the men in black came from, but they suddenly broke into Prince Chen's mansion. Some arrows were shot at the shadows of the people in the half-open window. There was a woman's scream, and someone shouted, "Princess, princess! Come on, save the princess! Come on. A servant girl rushed out and shouted loudly. In the night, the men in black looked around blankly. The people they brought were still here, and they had not taken action yet. Why did they shoot arrows directly into the room where Princess Chen lived? Shouldn't an assassination be carried out with a sword? It was not a good sign to make such a big noise with arrows. This place was connected to the Imperial Palace, and there were guards sent by the Emperor at the door. Originally, he wanted to make a move without anyone knowing, but now it seemed that someone had ruined his plan. "Let's go," the leader in black said decisively. No matter whether Princess Chen was okay or not, they couldn't stay in this place anymore. Just when they were about to jump away, they suddenly saw men in black appear on the opposite side. It seemed that they had appeared and left, and they actually bumped into each other. The two groups of people couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, and then they directly took action. Since they were not their own people, they must be people from other families. There were many people secretly plotting against Princess Chen. Since they had met, they would directly take action. In the darkness, blood splattered, swords flashed with cold light, and screams came one after another. Everyone tried their best to kill each other and then quickly escape from the scene. No one dared to stay here for a long time. If the matter got out of hand, the whole city would be under martial law. The longer they stayed, the more likely they would be exposed. Everyone was desperate. No one knew where the arrows came from, but they shot at the crowd indiscriminately. Under the indiscriminate attack, some people were shot. There were many faint lights in the outer courtyard, and the people in the front courtyard were about to rush in. When the men in black saw the situation, they knew that it was not good. They took away their own people who could be taken away, and killed those who couldn't be taken away directly with a sword. Immediately, all the men in black scattered together and fled for their lives. The chief butler finally rushed over with the guards. Half of these guards were the guards of Prince Chen's mansion, and the other half were the guards sent by the emperor to Prince Chen's mansion. Seeing the dead men in black inside and outside Princess Chen's courtyard, everyone's face changed greatly. The chief butler hurriedly went forward and knocked on the door of the courtyard, but no one opened the door. A guard jumped in from the top of the wall and opened the door. He saw a few servant girls and old maids in the courtyard, but their legs were weak and they couldn't even move. The women in the inner courtyard had never experienced such a thing. They were so scared that their faces turned pale and their legs were weak. They couldn't even open the courtyard door. The chief butler rushed into the main room. After a while, he said to the guard with a sullen face, "Quick, go and get the doctor here." At first glance, he knew that Princess Chen was in bad condition. Chapter 1092. Princess Chen is just a girl in the inner courtyard, but someone tried to kill her, and they even used crossbows. Who can tell me why the crossbows in the army appeared in Prince Chen's mansion? Did they want to kill Princess Chen or destroy Prince Chen's mansion? Princess Chen is just a weak girl. What did they do to you? In the high hall, the emperor threw several memorials at his hand down fiercely. Coincidentally, they landed beside Prince Yu and Prince Zhou. These two princes stood in the front, and the memorials thrown down by the emperor happened to fall in front of them. One of them even hit Prince Yu's head. Prince Yu, who was hit, did not make a sound and did not even dare to reach out to touch it. He continued to stand still. Did the emperor deliberately throw the memorials on the two princes or accidentally? It was really inexplicable. What was even more inexplicable was that Prince Cheng also came to the court. Prince Cheng rarely came to the court. Why did he happen to come today? Was it really a coincidence or something else? Did they want to kill Princess Chen? Why did they want to kill Princess Chen? Many courtiers were at a loss. Not everyone was well informed, especially the news in the palace. Many courtiers did not know that Princess Chen was involved in the previous matter. At the moment, they were also at a loss and did not know why they wanted to kill Princess Chen. She was just a princess, and she was Prince Chen's princess. Now that Prince Chen was not in the mansion, why did someone want to kill Princess Chen? Could it be that these princes had any intention? If it was to deal with Prince Chen, they could think it through. But it was really a big fuss to deal with a harmless Princess Chen in the inner courtyard. Especially now it was said that the military crossbows were used. This kind of crossbows could not be collected by the common people. Anyone who collected it would be a big crime. But now it meant that they not only collected it but also used such powerful crossbows, which was really beyond everyone's expectation. Were they planning to rebel? The courtiers were very flustered. From time to time, they looked at the two princes, Prince Yu and Prince Zhou, and some people looked at Prince Cheng. In fact, Prince Cheng was also very suspicious, wasn't he? Using so many powerful weapons was not something that an ordinary person could do. It didn't matter if everyone couldn't figure out the meaning of wanting to kill Princess Qin, but one thing was certain, it must be the royal family who did it. At present, these three people were indeed the most suspicious. Of course, Prince Xian, who was not in the court, was also suspicious. It was just that his suspicions couldn't be compared to the few who were currently in court. Tell me, why did you kill Princess Qin? If Prince Qin was here, would it be Prince Qin who had an accident last night? The emperor pointed at his sons and even his brother. He was so angry that he flew into a rage. After what happened last night, someone immediately reported it to the emperor. It was said that something happened in Prince Chen's mansion and Princess Qin was injured. Although she was in the room at that time and happened to lower her head to avoid being stabbed, she was still injured. In a panic, someone rushed in and stabbed her with a sword. At this time, no one knew whether she was dead or alive. Thinking of this, the emperor trembled with anger. I'm not dead yet, but all of you can't help it. Even Prince Chen's mansion can't tolerate you. Who else can it tolerate? Do you want to kill all the other royal children after I die? The emperor slapped the table hard and said angrily. Chu Luiwei and Chu Liuzhou couldn't stand it anymore and knelt down with a plop. Prince Cheng looked at his two nephews and then looked at his furious brother. He had no choice but to kneel down. I beg Muhu to plead for leniency for my two sons. His Majesty wants to keep them under surveillance. When the Empress pleaded for mercy, she deliberately included Chu Luiwei. The news of the former emperor's anger had spread to the imperial harem. This time, the Empress and concubine united and stood together to plead for the two princes wholeheartedly. Empress Dowager, Prince Yu has been a sensible and kind boy since he was a child. How dare he do such a thing? Although he looks a little cold, it's because there are too many women around him. In fact, he is very gentle in heart. Please investigate this matter, Empress Dowager. Don't let the emperor misunderstand the two princes. Concubine choked with sobs. Compared with the empress who was occasionally strong, Concubine looked much softer. She was the biological mother of the emperor's first son, so she was naturally different from other S. Later, she became the head of the 4S, so she was also very dignified in front of the Empress Dowager. At this time, she knelt on the ground and cried so hard that she couldn't stand up straight. Mother, Prince Zhou and Prince Yu are really innocent. Please save them. Don't let them be involved in these things. Princess Qin is fine now. I heard that she has been much better, the Empress said while wiping her tears. Empress Dowager. Concubine cried. All right, that's enough. The Empress Dowager slapped the table heavily with her hand and glanced gloomily at the Empress and Concubine. What happened last night was so unexpected that the Empress Dowager still couldn't believe it. In order to deal with Xiao Wanru, they used such a powerful weapon. Did they really want to rebel? Who had such a powerful crossbow in their hands? It was a killing weapon several times more powerful than arrows. Thinking that Princess Qin almost had an accident last night, the Empress Dowager still couldn't calm down until now. If something really happened to Xiao Wanru, what would happen to Qin? Would he be unable to bear it and follow them all at once? These people didn't want to kill Princess Qin. It was obvious that they wanted to kill Prince Qin. Thinking of this, the Empress Dowager was furious. Concubine was pleasing to the eye at first, but now she didn't like her. She really didn't believe that this kind of thing had nothing to do with the princes. You can't tolerate Qin at all. His body is like this, but you can't tolerate him. Now it's Princess Qin. Will it be Prince Qin next time? The Empress Dowager pointed at the Empress and Concubine and scolded angrily. Mother, I didn't. Empress Dowager, come on, ask the Empress and Concubine to go back. Before the matter is settled, the two concubines should stay in their own palaces for the time being. The Empress Dowager thought for a moment and said, let Concubine Ming take charge first, and find two older concubines to take charge. The Empress Dowager made a decision. Mother, The empress cried. She had always been in charge of the harem. She didn't expect that her power would be taken away because of such a thing. How could she be reconciled? We'll talk about it after the matter is settled. The Empress Dowager said sternly. She had already made a decision in her heart. The Empress and concubine Da in the palace must be supervised, lest the two of them and the two grandsons outside the palace get into more trouble. Although concubine Ming was also suspected, compared with the two of them, concubine Ming was much less suspicious. It was best to let concubine Ming replace the empress for the time being and exercise the responsibility of managing the harem. Chapter 1093. Xiao Wanru was really hurt on her arm. Of course, it was not hurt by others, but by herself. Mingqiu Nun was changing the dressing for her, and then she said, "Princess, be careful. If the sword goes deeper, it will hurt the major blood vessels, and your life will be in danger." Thinking of treating Xiao Wanru's wound before, Mingqiu Nun couldn't help trembling. She was Xiao Wanru's master. How could she not feel distressed when seeing her injured like this? In the past few years, Mingqiu Nun had been living in the Yuhui nunnery, living a quiet and peaceful life. Now Xiao Wanru was injured like this, which shocked her a lot. Looking at Mingqiu Nun's pale face, Xiao Wanru was very calm and said with a smile, "Don't worry, Nun. I'm fine now, right?" Xiao Wanru's left arm was injured and tied up. Her white and healthy face, which used to be tender and ruddy, was pale without a trace of blood. The corners of her lips were white, and her black hair was scattered on her body, which made her look more petite and slender. At this moment, she endured the pain of the wound and comforted Mingqiu Nun with a smile. Mingqiu Nun was a kind person, and she didn't want her to be involved in this trick. It was better for her not to know. Who on earth is so ruthless? He obviously wants to kill the princess. Mingqiu Nun looked at the broken window. At this time, the window had been changed. But even the window could not be seen, there were still traces of the crossbow on the table inside. At first glance, it could be seen that the crossbow was very powerful. Fortunately, Xiao Wanru and several maids didn't shoot at that time. Otherwise, even if the crossbow hit the hand, one of the arms would definitely be broken. If it hit the body, the person would immediately die. The dead people in the courtyard had been taken away, and the blood had been washed away. Mingqiu Nun's nose was very sensitive, and she could still vaguely smell the smell of blood, which inexplicably made people feel that the whole courtyard was gloomy and very uncomfortable. The maids and old maids walking in the courtyard were all trembling with fear, as if there was still an invisible aura of yesterday in the air. The women in the inner courtyard had never seen such a thing. "Nun, is the princess all right?" Yujia lifted the curtain and came in, saying anxiously. Since last night, none of the maids had slept. Although their faces were pale, they were highly alert and didn't want to sleep. "Princess, you have to rest well." Looking at Xiao Wanru's expression, Mingqiu Nun ordered Yujia, "Ask Princess to have a good rest these days. Let's talk about those annoying things after Prince comes back." As a girl in the inner courtyard, Princess has suffered such a big disaster. It's really... Speaking of this, Mingqiu Nun sighed. Even if she was not in the game, she felt that there was something strange about this matter. She was afraid that it had something to do with the royal family's competition for heirs. Such a thing in the royal family had also disturbed the women in the inner courtyard, especially women like Xiao Wanru. In Mingqiu Nun's eyes, Xiao Wanru was actually a girl who had not reached the age of 15. "Don't worry, Nun. I will take good care of the princess." Yujia breathed a sigh of relief. She knew Mingqiu Nun's words, so she knew that it must be nothing serious. She turned to look at Xiao Wanru and saw the princess's pale face. Even if she was not the one who was injured, she only felt her heart palpitate. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she wouldn't have believed that the princess dared to stab her arm with a sword. Such a big wound spurted out, and all the maids were stunned. No one had expected that the princess would really stab herself in such a way without any pretense. Even a man might not be able to do such a thing, but the princess, such a weak woman, dared to do it. "Princess, great elder princess is here." Chu Le hurriedly came in and reported. Yu Jie, please have a rest first. Yu Jie nodded and left with Ming Qiu-nun. And Great Elder Princess came in with weak steps, holding Xiao Yuanhao's hand. When she walked in, she almost fell at the door. Zhuoshua, are you okay? Seeing Xiao Wanru lying on the bed, and Great Elder Princess's eyes turned red. Such a strong person could hardly stand steadily at this time. If it weren't for Nanny Gao and Xiao Yuanhao supporting her, she would have collapsed. Grandma, I'm fine. Xiao Wanru forced a smile on her face and comforted Ru and Great Elder Princess. Looking at Xiao Wanru's pale face, Ru and Great Elder Princess seemed to see her daughter lying on the bed with a pale face and never waking up again. She couldn't hold back her tears anymore. She took 2 steps forward in a hurry and reached out to grab one of Xiao Wanru's hands. Feeling the slight warmth under her hands, she breathed a sigh of relief and said in a choked voice, "It's good that you're fine. It's good that you're fine." Sister, are you really okay? Do you need to ask a few more doctors to come over? Xiao Yuanhao also stepped forward with a worried look and said like an adult. I'm fine. You don't have to worry. Xiao Wanru said with a soft smile. Chu Le moved a chair over and asked Xiao Yuanhao to sit down. And Great Elder Princess sat directly at the head of the bed. What happened last night? What do you mean by someone attacked Prince Chen's mansion at night? What did they want to do? Prince Chen is just an idle royal prince. Can't they even tolerate this? And Great Elder Princess calmed down and said while gnashing her teeth. Everyone could see that it must have something to do with the princes who were fighting for the throne. And Great Elder Princess got the news a little later. When she heard that Xiao Wanru had an accident, she was so scared that she almost fainted. Later, Xiao Yuanhao took her here. At that moment, Ru and Great Elder Princess's thoughts almost stopped, as if it was the day when her daughter died. Seeing that Xiao Wanru was fine, she recovered. Grandma, I'm fine now. The Emperor will definitely find out about it. Feeling the strength and warmth of her grandma's hand, Xiao Wanru felt warm in her heart. I'll go to the Imperial Palace later. I'll go to the Empress Dowager. Prince Qin is not an eyesore. He has been sick and weak for so many years. Now that he is a little better, they can't tolerate him anymore. They can't even tolerate you. These people are too cruel. And Great Elder Princess said angrily. Grandma, don't go first. At this time, the Imperial Palace must be in a mess. The Empress and concubine will get you involved. Xiao Wanru comforted Great Elder Princess. So what? I'm not afraid of them getting me involved. And Great Elder Princess said angrily. And Great Elder Princess said angrily. She really wanted to go to the Imperial Palace and scold Prince Yu and Prince Zhou in front of the Empress and concubine. It must be the 2 of them who ordered them to do this. Otherwise, who would deal with Xiao Wanru? They were so cruel that they couldn't even tolerate Princess Qin, who was not a threat to them at all. If they took over the world in the future, few people could live well. Great Elder Princess didn't believe that others couldn't think of it. Grandma, this matter may have something to do with them, or it may have nothing to do with them. Let's wait and see. You stay in Prince Chen's mansion to take care of me, okay? Xiao Wanru was afraid that and Great Elder Princess would really rush to the Imperial Palace to make trouble. Before the situation was clear, she didn't want Great Elder Princess to get involved. At this time, anyone who got involved might get into trouble. The best way was to wait first. Now that things had become like this, the Emperor would definitely investigate it. That night, many men in black were drawn out. Even though Xiao Wanru had been prepared, she was still shocked. Later, in order to make herself look more real, she deliberately stabbed herself with a sword. Originally, she planned to make use of the guards Chu Luchen left for her in the mansion to carry out an ordinary assassination on herself. After discussing with the chief butler, she planned to carry it out at night. However, later the chief butler came to her and told her that Chu Luchen had ordered him to increase the intensity of the assassination, so he asked her and her servant girls to hide. In fact, it was not her who was in her room that day. She and several servant girls hid in a wing room. When the crossbow entered the room, no one was hurt, but the noise was loud. Later, Several groups of men in black were drawn out. No one knew who they were in the dark, so they fought in disorder. When the chief butler's men rushed in and the men in black ran away, Xiao Wanru returned to the room with her servant girls and then stabbed herself with a sword. Everything was arranged. Only Xiao Wanru stabbed herself with a sword, which surprised everyone. When the chief butler heard that Princess Chen was really injured, he almost fainted. His master had repeatedly told him to protect the princess, but he didn't expect that the princess was still injured. The chief butler blamed himself and felt that he had failed the prince. At that time, Xiao Wanru saw clearly that there were not only 2 groups of men in black, but even 4 groups. It looked like the second group. How could there be 4 groups? Even if there were a group of people from Prince Yu's mansion, Prince Zhou's mansion, and Prince Cheng's mansion, who was the last group? As for the people from Prince Chen's mansion, they didn't show up when the men in black fought. The crossbows were in the hands of the people from Prince Chen's mansion, and then they quietly retreated. No one was injured, and no corpse was left. After Xiao Wanru found that the 4th group of people appeared, she decisively stabbed herself with a sword. The matter was so complicated. She didn't want a fake wound on her body to expose Chu Liuchen's matter. Since she was injured, she was really injured. Whether the imperial physician in the imperial palace or others came to see her, the result would be the same. This was also the reason why she did not hesitate to hurt herself at that time. If this matter was investigated, it would involve too many people. Prince Chen's mansion couldn't be involved. It would be her, Princess Chen's business to prove her innocence. Grandma, there were a lot of men in black who came to the mansion yesterday. I don't think they are the same group. I'm afraid that many people will be involved. I'm the victim now. Grandma, you should be sensible at this time. In this case, even if the emperor doesn't want to investigate it, you have to. Xiao Wanru reminded Great Elder Princess implicitly. After all, and Great Elder Princess had experienced this. She was so concerned about it that she lost her normal mind. After hearing Xiao Wanru's advice, she thought for a while and knew that this was the best time. No matter what the emperor thought, this matter must be investigated, and it must be investigated clearly. A dignified prince's mansion was attacked with crossbows in the middle of the night. Next time, would they attack the imperial palace? The emperor couldn't even guarantee his own safety. Just think about it, which emperor could sleep well? Even if it was his son, so what? Chapter 1094. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign /say, net wonderful pop-up window free reading. Do you know when Prince Chen will return to the capital? After and Great Elder Princess calmed down, she paused and asked. With a serious face, she said hesitantly, I heard from Ruaping that it seems unlikely that Prince Chen will come back before the Empress Dowager's birthday. In this case, no one in the mansion will go to the emperor to inquire about the news. There was no male master in the mansion, and the female master was injured. It was inconvenient for the others in the mansion to inquire about the news from others. When Great Elder Princess originally wanted to inquire about it, but Xiao Wanru told her that she could not act rashly at this time. If it went on like this, there would be no news from Prince Chen's mansion. If something happened, there would be no chance to deal with it. And Great Elder Princess was very worried. In fact, she didn't say a few words. Ruaping Great Elder Princess's previous words seemed to have other meanings. It seemed to imply that the reason why Prince Chen returned to the capital city so slowly and traveled all the way back was that he accompanied Princess Yutao of her son-in-law's country. It was said that Princess Yutao was the first beauty of her son-in-law's country. Great Elder Princess didn't like the meaning of her words very much and was also very worried. However, it was not the right time to tell her granddaughter about it. She was afraid that these words would make Xiao Wanru confused. Grandma, don't worry. Prince Chen will return to the capital city soon. Xiao Wanru said softly. Last night, she was not so cruel in her own way. Later, the butlers secretly told her about Chu Liuchen's plan, and what she did was to cooperate with Chu Liuchen's plan. Of course, stabbing herself with a sword was not part of Chu Liuchen's plan. Thinking of this, she felt inexplicably guilty. The head butler looked at himself with a pale face. Even now, he still felt sorry for the head butler. What the head butler meant was that he only needed to find a maid to be injured. She would never be injured. However, at that moment, Xiao Wanru felt that it would be more effective only if she was injured. Moreover, she was proficient in medical skills and knew where to stab. It seemed that the injury was the most serious, but in fact it was not so serious. I heard that Princess Yutao from my son-in-law's country is very beautiful. And great elder princess frowned tightly. Looking at her granddaughter's pale face, she couldn't bear to let her know nothing about it. What if the princess from my son-in-law's country really wanted to marry into Prince Chen's mansion? The news from outside repeatedly talked about Princess Yutao, which made Ru and great elder princess very upset. She didn't doubt Chu Luchen at first. 3 years ago, Chu Luchen expressed his intention to marry Xiao Wanru and said that his health was not as bad as others said. If he took good care of himself, he would recover. He didn't recover before because he gave up on himself. Later, as Chu Luchen said, his health was getting better and better. Except that her complexion looked bad as usual, everything else was fine. Even the Empress Dowager said happily that it seemed that the root of the disease was gone. Now she just needed to continue to nurse herself. And great elder princess breathed a sigh of relief. However, there were too many rumors about Princess Yutao, which reached Ru and great elder princess's ears from time to time. Princess Yutao seemed to be determined to marry Chu Luchen. What about her granddaughter? It was impossible for the princess of a country to be Chu Liuchen's concubine. However, if she didn't be a concubine, could her granddaughter be a concubine? This was impossible. Ru and great elder princess had already made up her mind. If the emperor really wanted to marry her, she would kill herself in the throne room in front of all the officials. This official's face died there. Let's see if the emperor can still let his granddaughter become a side fei or make a ping fei. Although she had made up her mind, and great elder princess was really reluctant to let her granddaughter be sad. Now her granddaughter had suffered so much. Although she wanted to hide something, she felt that she couldn't hide it. So she simply told her granddaughter first so that she could have a sense of security. Grandma, don't worry. It will be fine. As soon as Xiao Wanru heard Ru and great elder princess's words, she knew what great elder princess meant. She immediately comforted Ru and great elder princess with a smile. Princess Yutao of the son-in-law country. Ru and great elder princess felt that Xiao Wanru didn't understand. She coughed in a low voice and said, "On the way back to the capital city with Prince Qin, it is possible that something happened. Although the son-in-law country is a small country, it is too remote and inconvenient for the army to march. In the eyes of the royal family, it was not a big deal to sacrifice the position of a prince concubine for the peace of the two countries to appease the princess of the son-in-law country." Ru and great elder princess didn't think it was a big deal at first, but it was related to her only granddaughter, so she was very unwilling to give up. "Grandma, don't worry. It will be fine. Even if Princess Yutao wants to marry him, Prince Chen will refuse her. The one who will marry into the capital city is not Princess Yutao, but Princess Yuyen, the second princess of the son-in-law country." Xiao Wanru comforted Ru and great elder princess in a soft voice. She didn't want her grandma to worry about her. Seeing that Ru and great elder princess wanted to say something but stopped on second thought, Xiao Wanru knew that someone came to talk about this kind of thing. Given her grandma's character, she believed it. It could be seen that it had been said many times. The one who will marry into the capital city is not Princess Yutao, but the second princess of the son-in-law country? And great elder princess was stunned and said in astonishment. She really hadn't heard of it. "Yes, so don't worry. Princess Yuyen and Commandery Prince Qing have been in a relationship for a long time. Now she will marry Commandery Prince Qing in the capital city. Princess Yutao is just a gift and has nothing to do with Prince Qin." Xiao Wanru explained with a smile. "That's great." And great elder princess was overjoyed. A heavy stone was lifted from her heart, and the smile on her face eased her face. "Brother-in-law promised me that he would treat my sister well." Xiao Yuanhao didn't understand at first, but now he understood. He immediately said with dissatisfaction, "Grandma, brother-in-law promised me on the day my sister got married. If brother-in-law dares to marry the princess of the son-in-law country again, I will not spare him." Hearing Xiao Yuanhao's childish words, Ru and great elder princess and Xiao Wanru both laughed. "Grandma, who told you that Princess Yu Tao of the son-in-law country was going to marry Prince Qin?" After laughing, Xiao Wanru asked. "When Ruiping brought you on and here, he always talked about it, and Madame Zhang of Prime Minister occasionally brought her daughter here and talked about it." And great elder princess said, "Madame Zhang of Prime Minister and Zhang Qilon?" Xiao Wanru was slightly stunned. Yes, Ruiping and Yuan, and were the most obvious ones. As for Madame Zhang of Prime Minister and Miss Zhang, they only mentioned it once. They met by chance when Ruiping was with them. And great elder princess thought for a while and nodded. "Madame Zhang of Prime Minister has a good relationship with you, Grandma?" Xiao Wanru was curious. She hadn't heard Zhang Qilon mention it before. "It's not very good. We've been in contact with each other occasionally in the past, but not often. Now Prince Yu comes here occasionally, and the people of Zhang's mansion also come here a few times." And great elder princess said, "Chu Luiwei was good at making superficial appearances. For so many years, he would come to see and great elder princess, who was widowed at home from time to time. Zhang Qilon was the future princess of Prince Yu's mansion. It was essential for her to go to great elder princess's mansion with Madame Zhang and make friends with the elders of Prince Yu. No one found it strange. However, Xiao Wanru just had a strange feeling. She couldn't explain it clearly. It was just an intuition, which made her feel uncomfortable. There were no elders in Prince Chen's mansion, and Princess Chen was ill, so Ru and great elder princess lived in Prince Chen's mansion and took care of Xiao Wanru, who was injured, as an elder. Xiao Yuanhao also lived in Prince Chen's mansion. He invited the teacher who had taught before and temporarily lived in the guest room of Prince Chen's mansion. The courtyard, which had been attacked, was rearranged. And great elder princess was in charge, while Xiao Wanru quietly recuperated. The rewards from the palace came like flowing water. First, it was the Empress Dowager, then the Empress, Concubine De, Concubine Ming, and even some others sent gifts to Prince Chen's mansion. Xiao Wanru had only heard of most of the titles, but she couldn't contact them specifically. For a moment, Prince Chen's mansion became lively. The gate of Prince Chen's mansion was guarded. Anyone who entered Prince Chen's mansion was questioned again and again, for fear that something would happen again. Many aristocratic families who had wanted to greet Prince Chen's mansion didn't make any moves for the time being. At this time, it was easy to have some accidents if they went to Prince Chen's mansion, so they had to wait and see. Prince Yu, Prince Zhou, and Prince Cheng were all grounded and were not allowed to go out. From time to time, people from the military office of the 5 cities could be seen asking questions in the capital city. When they encountered people who seemed to be behaving suspiciously, they would arrest them first. This was only the case on the surface. No one knew how many people were secretly investigating this matter. For a moment, the whole capital city was in a state of panic. In the Empress's Fengyi Palace in the Imperial Palace, the Empress knelt in front of the Emperor and said with tears in her eyes, "Your Majesty, it's really not Zhou. He has always been reckless. Among the princes, he is the least scheming. What's more, he dealt with Princess Qin." Why did he deal with Princess Qin? It had been several days. This was the first time that the Emperor had set foot in her Fengyi Palace after the accident. As soon as she saw the Emperor, the Empress cried aggrievedly. The Emperor's face darkened. He looked at the Empress coldly and his face was full of disappointment. "Originally, I thought you were a good person, so I gave the whole harem to you. I didn't expect that you couldn't tolerate Prince Qin." "Your Majesty, what are you talking about? Why can't I understand?" The Empress's heart suddenly skipped a beat and she said anxiously, "What am I talking about? Do you really not understand?" The Emperor asked in a cold voice and his eyes were gloomy. He had just come back from Concubine Land's place. Until now, he was still angry and annoyed. He felt that a breath was stuck in his chest. He only felt that he could not swallow it or spit it out. The maple leaf painting incident of the Empress Dowager and the assassination of Princess Chen were piled up together. There were some things that he could not bear. When the late emperor died of illness, I have thought about it for a long time. In this palace, you are the only one who knows best, aren't you, Empress? When the late emperor died, the picture of the medicine bowl he used and the scene of his mother serving medicine at that time were almost very real. If someone didn't know something, how could he draw it so accurately? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.